More fonts. Put more fonts on the title card, they said. And I said, can do. And then I said amigo, and then immediately regretted it. Like, don't need to say can do amigo. Well, we're already in it. It is July 12th, 2022, and you are tuned in to the Jeff Gerstmann Show here. Whether you're watching us live or you are downloading us somewhere, keep doing the downloading. That's what they say. Hey kids, I'm a computer. Keep on doing the downloading. Keep on doing the show. Make the show come to you as I am bringing it to you here live from California. Southern California, to be exact. It's warm here again. Surprise, surprise. We're going to get back up into the 90s here a little bit. And so that's fun. I don't know. Been here doing our thing. Getting ready for my daughter's birthday here pretty soon. She's about to turn 3, and so this has the potential to be the first birthday that she like remembers, right? So we're trying to do stuff for her birthday and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, basically she's basically an adult now. Yeah, I send her out for smokes. Get out there and get your old man a pack of cigarettes and get out there and get him a carton of Cools. Give me a carton of Lucky Strikes. So we've a little bit of family coming in. Not hey, here's a big bouncy castle. Here's a big like all that sort of stuff. There's a park near here, and every weekend there are parents like frantically trying to build gigantic birthday parties, all that sort of stuff. I don't know, but I don't know. She's 3. We haven't, we're also still relatively new to the area and all that sort of stuff. So, we haven't really, between that and just like no one's going out and seeing people. Well, actually, that's not true. A lot of people are going out and doing a lot of stuff, but yeah, so just haven't really integrated ourselves into the community to a degree where, I guess that's something that's like a preschool thing, right? You send them off to preschool and then they make friends. And then by virtue, like people always ask, how do adults make friends? And I just go like, I don't know. I don't hang out in bars anymore. So it's not that way. And I think you have to have kids and then, or dog. I guess you go to a dog park and do this the same exact way. But, you gotta enroll your kids in some kind of program. You gotta bring the kids somewhere to the kid. There's a kid park. There are dog parks. There must be kid parks. You bring the kid to the kid park, and then there are other parents there, and you go like, "You look like, hey, what's up? Hey, how's it going?" I'm theorizing here because my wife does. I have not gone out and met. She has met way more people here than I have. That's for sure. She knows the neighbors' names. I have forgotten them. There's people with a cat. There's a British lady. She's nice. There's some people over here that have a car. One guy looks like he works out a bunch. And there's people on the street with like a super fancy car that they've done all the exhaust on that I just go like, I don't know. I don't, like all this like Lamborghini, Ferrari, fancy expensive car stuff does absolutely nothing for me. It never has. That's my Forza. That's why Forza and stuff like that have been so exciting when they get into real cars, because I like taking real cars and doing bad shit to them. You know what I mean? Like, let me get a Mazda mini truck and straight pipe it so that the exhaust is setting off car alarms as we're driving around, and put some bass tubes under this. That's not me. My friend Jim did that when we were in high school. I had a Nova with some 6x9s in the back deck that hit pretty hard. For 6x9s, they hit pretty hard. So whistle tips, hey, look, I know, the internet loves whistle tips. I know somewhere on one of these three Discord servers that I look at on a regular basis, I know people were talking about Bub Rub recently, and we love Bub Rub coming from the Bay. Granted the North Bay, but coming from the Bay, I always looked at Bub Rub and said, like, yeah, no, I know that guy. I don't know that guy, but I know that guy, and so I don't know. Whistle tips had their time. I heard a few cars that had whistle tips back when Bub Rub was extolling the virtues of whistle tips. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I guess just go type Bub Rub with 2 B's on both ends of it into the internet and go see what Bub Rub and Lil Sis had to say about getting whistle tips. They were getting it installed on their car. That's the best part of that video. It's a news clip of people being angry about people doing cool shit to their exhaust, and making it have this cool whistle noise. And there are 2 great parts of that news clip. It's the reporter saying it was being installed on their car, and then the part where he takes off, where they drive off in the car and fucking and almost slam into a parked car in the middle of all that. Those are the 2. If we are ranking things that happened in the Bub Rub news report, those are top 2. That's like 1 and 1A. And then when we come down from there, it's like, yeah, it's the part where he says that you're supposed to be up cooking breakfast. That part's good. Or it's the lady going like, like complaining about the whistle tips. But I don't know. That's the we just had the 4th of July happen. Not a ton of fireworks around here because they are illegal. That didn't stop some people, but it was not nearly as much as I'm used to from where we used to live. There was just a ton of fireworks. What about Lil Sis? We know about Bub. We found Bub Rub's social media profiles. They had not been updated in a little bit of time, but what happened to Lil Sis? We just don't know. Yeah, and that is that is another one of those things that once you get on the other side of having kids, and again, this applies to pets too. You get to that point of just like, I just need these kids to sleep, because if they wake up, I don't get to sleep. And I don't mind the fireworks noises at all. It doesn't bother me that much. My wife is a light sleeper, and she does not like it. And then the last thing you want to happen is have the kids wake up in the middle of the night. Oh my God. Because then you're like, okay, we're up for hours now. But not so bad. Not so bad here. I don't know. I just, I'm torn, right? Because like I spent a lot of years as a delinquent of some sort, and I, as such, really enjoy blowing shit up. It's fun. I had a friend who liked to throw like M80s into like the sewer drains, and so that they would reverb up and down an entire block, and it was cool as hell. Not so cool if you had to work the next day, or you were a light sleeper, or if you were a child or a pet and all that sort of stuff, and you're like, yeah, no, it's shitty. It's shitty. It's shitty to do that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, that's my dad. My dad had a few good years there where when I was a little kid, where he was still interested in blowing shit up, and we blew some shit up. And then I think at some point he went like, man, I never talked to him about it, but it was like he seemed to settle down in a very specific way to where every 4th of July I'd be like, yo, let's get some more bottle rockets and fuck shit up, and he was just, there was a lot, like one year just he was not down anymore. I think some bottle rockets, or what, I don't even know what they're called. Okay, so like in California, or at least in my part of California, when fireworks were legal, it it was all bullshit. All the legal fireworks were garbage. It was like sparklers and the cones that emit showers of sparks and the little, nothing to win the air. You know what I mean? And one year I remember I think just where he worked, a dude would just drive by with a box truck and just be like, what you need? And he would open up the box truck and you'd be like, oh, well, and so there was a few years there that we had really cool, super illegal fireworks. And I think a bottle rocket landed on a neighbor's roof, and some with one year when we went a little hard. And I think after that he was a little like, yeah, all right, I don't want to burn down a neighbor's house. I have to live here. And so he kind of dropped out a little bit. But one year after, there was like some years there after that where, it was just like, whatever, we didn't do anything too crazy. And then we moved across town when I was in junior high, and we set up he had this idea of just like, okay, so some of the fountains, the things that sit on the ground and emit showers of sparks are big cylinders. It's a big cylinder shaped device, and most of it's hollow. And there's a little bit of gunpowder in there that makes whatever colored whatever, and it comes out for a little bit, and maybe it screams for a second, and then it's out, and you're like, okay, well, whatever. He got it in his head. There's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. He drilled a hole in the bottom of it where it was hollow, and he filled it full of black powder. And then took the fuse that went to the top and split it off and ran the fuse down to the bottom so that it went in there too. And then we set that off, and we set it in the middle. We lived in a court, set it in the middle of the court. So, okay. So people in chat are saying that's a bomb. It's not a bomb, because bombs need pressure. It's okay. Well, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to build a bomb. We're already past that. Fuck all that. You need pressure. That's why they're pipe that. It's the cylinders are made of cardboard. It's something that's gonna immediately fall apart. And to build a bomb, you need something that's not immediately going to fall apart, I guess I should say. Okay. Anyway, he lit this thing, about 4 sparks came out, and then I heard a weird clicking noise, like the feds are on the fucking line now. And then a jet engine style flame shot out of this thing about 8 feet, and just went for about I don't know. It felt like forever, but it was probably like 15 seconds or something like that. And it was extremely fucking cool and extremely fucking dangerous. And that was the last time my dad and I did anything fireworks related. I think after that I started hanging out with friends and got up to whatever. But that's the last fireworks thing I remember really doing with my dad. When I was junior high, maybe like a freshman in high school, something like that, and just massive flames up into the air. But it's in the middle of a court, so it wasn't like, it wasn't near a house, it wasn't anything like that. So perfectly safe. Anyway, that's my long way of saying, like, noise in the neighborhood, kind of uncool. There's a guy up the street that plays the drums, and I like that. It's funny because there was a guy at the old house, in basically the exact same distance, that also practiced drums in their garage. And sometimes a few times I just set a microphone up and just started recording out the window, just to get, like, I don't know, what am I doing? Like field recordings of drum practice. There's like, in my head, I'm like, I'm going to sample these drums and it's going to fucking sound crazy because it's someone playing in a garage across the street and the microphone is pointed out the window and that's going to sound really weird. And I recorded it and yeah, it sounds really weird. but I never did anything with it. I think I still have the Petaluma drum samples around here. I think this guy might be a little bit further away, so it'd probably be a little bit harder to record that drumming. And then that got me thinking about the legality of that. Not that I'm like, but I'm like, okay, is it legal for me that noise is just in the air? That's just me turning on a microphone in my own home and picking up drum noises. I can use those drum noises, right? Those are mine. That's public drum noise, you would think. Or do I have to go get those samples cleared by the drummer? I don't know. I know in California, you can record phone calls if only one party on the line knows it's being recorded. But I don't know. We're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to get a drum lawyer on the show one of these weeks. And we're gonna get to the bottom of this. The legality of my drum tapes. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back on the other side of that. We're going to talk about Klonoa and Exoprimal and some other stuff of that nature. Stay zipped in. Zip it in. Lock it. Lick it and lock it. Let's talk about the internet. All right? It's important to have access to the internet, especially, what do you, like, you're on a call, you're in a Zoom meeting, you're running a live stream, you're doing a live podcast, all that sort of stuff. Having access to the internet can be crucial. And have you ever just dropped out of a call because you were on some flaky, weird Wi-Fi? Like you're at some coffee shop and you're connected to their Wi-Fi and you're like, yeah, I mean, it works, but it's like, it's not good. What can I do about this? There's something you can do about this. That's right. There's Speedify. Speedify lets you use more than one internet connection at the same time. So you can take that coffee shop Wi-Fi and back it up with the cellular data connection on your phone and bond them together for combined speed and some extra reliability. Speedify is the only app that can combine multiple internet sources into one bonded super connection, and that can improve your live streaming, video calling, games, web browsing, whatever else you're trying to do online. It's available for all your devices, PC, Mac, iPhone, Android, Linux, all that stuff. And you use any type or combination of internet connections to help improve that performance. Runs in the background, super easy to use. So, what are you waiting for? That's right. Bolster that internet. Give your internet a little extra backbone in those spots where you need it most. You deserve a better internet. Speedify can help you deliver it. Try Speedify risk-free for 7 days, and you can get 20% off your order with the promo code Jeff. Simply visit speedify.com/Jeff. That's SPEEDIFY.com/Jeff. Okay, we're back. Let's talk about some video games. Klonoa is they put Klonoa. Oh geez, I need the full. What is the full title of Klonoa? Because they gave it a big full title. They re-released Klonoa 1 and 2 into a single package, and it is here. It is Klonoa Fantasy Reverie Series. Klonoa is back, bitch. You should play these games. Klonoa is so good. Klonoa looks great. So these are remasters. They're 16:9, and they have cleaned up the graphics and done a little bit to it. It doesn't look like a PlayStation game. You know what I mean? But the key part about Klonoa, we'll talk about Klonoa 1 here, because I didn't get into Klonoa 2 in the collection because I haven't finished Klonoa 1 yet. And so the goal, the basic idea in Klonoa is that what is Klonoa? Klonoa is this little fluffy puppet. He's a puppety oddball wearing a Pac-Man hat, and Klonoa can grab onto enemies. His ears are hands, I get Klonoa has big, long, floppy ears that are also hands. And the more I talk about Klonoa like this, is Klonoa creepy? No. Klonoa is a cute, puppety oddball that grabs stuff with his ear hands. All right, the ear hands is a little weird here now that I'm saying this out loud. Okay, so you can grab onto enemies with your ear hands and hold them. And you can hold them and do stuff with them. Namely, you can throw the enemies, so you can pick up an enemy, throw it at another enemy. And sometimes there are items in the foreground and background that you need to hit with an enemy to get it, to collect it, that sort of stuff. You can also jump in the air, and then if you're holding an enemy, you can jump again because you can kind of jump off of the enemy. Like you grab it, you push it down, and you get a little bit of burst of, you double jump that way, basically. You can also do kind of a little like mid-air kind of kind of hovery, floaty sort of thing. Some people have said it's Yoshi-esque, but I will say it is exactly like that, except good. So yeah, that's Klonoa, and it is a 2D platformer. It is a polygonal 2D platformer. It is what we used to call 2.5D. Now, I know that the 2.5D name is, people have tried to apply it to everything from like Street Fighter 4 to like basically anytime a 2D game is polygonal, they go, that's 2.5D. And like, no. What 2.5D used to mean is it is taking place on a 2D plane. You run left, you run right. You are not running in free 3D. You are not doing any kind of stuff. You are running to the right and occasionally running to the left. But the world rotates in such a way that gives it additional depth. Pandemonium for the PlayStation 1 is one of the first games I remember us referring to as 2.5D. Because you would run to the right and it would look like the road would curve and the background would turn and all this other stuff, but you were just running to the right. You're just holding to the right. Like from a gameplay perspective, it's still very much locked down as a 2D game. It was really just kind of a perspective shift that would happen along the way. That is 2.5D. Like Yoshi's. No, like Pandemonium. Everyone's favorite N-Gage game. Pandemonium. It also came out on the PlayStation. Knights, yes, Knights to me is just largely confusing. The movement in that game. I don't like Knights. Was Bug 2.5D? Not really. Bug was like a top-down game that they put on a weird angle. Bug is... We'll have to go back and play original Bug because I played some Bug 2 recently. And I think Bug and Bug 2 are pretty similar. What do I think of Crystal Castles? Not to get derailed by the chat here, but I love Crystal Castles, the game. Crystal Castles, the group, made some good music, and then that guy turned out to be absolute dog shit, and that's unfortunate. Anyway, Klonoa is out on a ton of different platforms right now. I've been playing it on PC. I have been playing it on the Steam Deck, in fact. And it is nice to play on the Steam Deck. It runs quite well there, and that's been a pretty fun way to play it. Yeah, no, it's been great to revisit it. It's a pretty basic platformer, it is pretty low key, at least at the start of it. It does ramp up, but it never quite gets to, it's not crazy, it's not like crazy difficult. What I remember of Klonoa 2, because I played Klonoa 1 probably a couple of times on the PlayStation, and then Klonoa 2 came out, and I remember playing it, and I don't know, at the time, I remember going like, oh, awesome, they made more Klonoa, but I can't tell you much about Klonoa 2 right now. I just don't have, I don't remember too much specific too many of the specific elements about it, what differentiates it from the first game. But yeah, I think it still feels pretty good to play. It has a player 2 kind of support functionality that seems like if you hook up a second controller, you can occasionally do an extra jump, and there's a meter that governs its use. That seems like something that's like if a parent wants to help a kid make a jump or something, you can do that. I'm not 100% sure how that works. It's kind of an interesting concept. But yeah, no, Klonoa 2 I remember being great as well, but I have not gone back and played it in this collection just yet because I have been stuck on Klonoa 1. I mean, I don't mean like I'm stuck in the game. I mean, I'm like, yeah, Klonoa 1. So give that a look if you're interested in classic PlayStation 1 platformers. And you want to check it out. I don't know if it comes with every version of the game, or if it was a pre-order bonus, but they gave me a bunch of bonus hats. So there's one that's like, it is just a big Pac-Man helmet. And there's a handful of others, like a Katamari helmet and stuff. But like Klonoa in his like painter cap with the Pac-Man logo with Pac-Man on it is such a classic look. I don't know why you would want to change it. I don't know why you would ever change it into one of those other helmets. It's part of a DLC pack? Okay, well, yeah, I don't know about that. I have one of those Klonoa hats in my garage somewhere for wearing purposes. And it's a heck of a hat. It's a heck of a hat. So yeah, that's Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series. I am excited that came out. That's one I feel good about. I know like they just announced that they were going to remake Pac-Man World and put that back out. That classic platformer from the late 90s. I remember Pac-Man World being like decently okay at best. And so it's kind of a weird thing for that. That was part of that Switch, that Nintendo Direct, the small one, where they said like, hey, Pac-Man World's coming out. I'm like, okay, all right, I guess. What? That's weird, but sure. I remember being okay. Yes, I do remember there being some people that were way into it. I imagine. I'm going to guess that those people were kids when that game came out, and they grew up to become Pac-Man World weirdos. Because that's just how it happens. Over the weekend, Friday and Saturday, was what they are billing as the final Rumbleverse network test. This is Iron Galaxy's wrestling-tinged battle royale game. It is a melee-focused 40-player game with a lot of those same battle royale rules. If you haven't seen it, the circle gets smaller, you come together, but you are doing backdrops and stone cold stunners and super kicks and the one of the illest spears to ever be in a video game. I had a great time with that. I started finally playing better. We streamed a little bit of it on Friday, and I basically refused to block. Turns out blocking is really good in that game for a couple of reasons. One, it lets you block. Two, you recover stamina more quickly when you are blocking. And so it's a game where everything you do, from running to your special moves, all that other stuff, expends stamina. And if you get hit when you have low stamina, you are made dizzy, as if in a fighting game. And you want to not run out of stamina. And dodging uses stamina. Everything. So there is total value in blocking. And basically they've built a fighting game style rock, paper, scissors sort of thing of like, okay, this counters this, and then this counters this, and then there's nuance here, and you can do this, hold this button to do this, and if you hold it down for a little bit longer, this pops faster, so you can fool them and get them. And there's it seems very simple at first, and they put the controls on screen at all time, and you're just like, okay, light attack, heavy attack, dodge, block, grab, whatever, I can do all that. But there's a ton of weird nuance to it that you simply would not expect from. I guess it's because it has such a cartoony look to it. It is very easy to just look at and go like, it's kid friendly. It's whatever. It's very basic. But like it has got a weird level of depth to it that once you once you start to pick up on that, and I think the game needs to do a better job at telling you about that depth, because it'll have billboards in the kind of the lobby, the tutorial, the lobby you get to before the game starts, you know, like Fortnite and PUBG and all those games have, has like billboards on the wall that are just like, hey, did you know you could fucking do this? And you read it and you go like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. But it needs some kind of it needs a little bit more. They were saying before this one went out that like, hey, this one's gonna have a tutorial. I never figured out if that was true or if it was where that tutorial was. But anyway, I think that it probably just needs something. Rumbleverse probably just needs a way to convey that depth to players a little bit more effectively, because I suspect that players going in raw and having all that stuff done to them, they're going to feel the way that novice fighting game players feel when they jump online, where you're just like, oh man, I got knocked down once and never got up again. I never figured out what I needed to do to, like, and that's very much that game. Like, it is every single matchup, every single button press is that guessing game of just like, what do I think they're going to do? Because if they do this, I want to do this. And if they do that, then I can't do this because that gets stuffed. I need to do that instead. And so it is that kind of mind game of like, okay, I want to roll out of the way and then do my wake up attack, as opposed to just doing my wake up attack because they're expecting me to do this. So I need to fake them out and do this. And, you know, there's a lot of instances where if you guess wrong 3 times in a row, you might just be dead, depending on the person, what the person attacking you has at their disposal, how leveled up, you know, how what perks they've unlocked. You unlock perks over the course of a game. And so that forces, so doing damage unlocks. Okay, look, I'm not going to just write a full tutorial here for Rumbleverse, but there's a lot of really smart shit in that game that, like, I've played probably 15 hours of that game now over the last, I don't know, year since they announced it or whatever, since before they announced it. And it has, so basically as you do damage, you are filling up an experience bar type thing. And every time it fills up, you get a perk. And some of those perks are like, hey, now when you do a drop kick, it also follows up with a dive kick. And you're like, that's cool. It's a little bit more damage. You know, all right, sure. And then one of them is like, hey, if you stand still somewhere long enough, you will start to recover health. And you're like, shit, that's crazy. That's insanely useful. And you have to look on the pause menu to see what those things are. They put the icons on screen, but it's, you know, until you've played it enough to recognize what the icons are, you're going to go like, I don't know. It says I unlocked a perk called Wind Fist. What does that even mean? How do I know? You know, like all that stuff is buried a little bit deeper than maybe it should be. But I guess the point is, you need those perks. You really benefit from getting those perks, especially near the late game, like when it's down to like 4 players and stuff like that. The perks you have might be the difference between you being able to hide and heal all the way up or being like totally effed. And so that alone, once you understand that system, it totally makes you rethink it made me rethink the entire way I've been playing that game, of just like, okay, I'm going to hide here. I'm going to run in here and do this, do a little bit of damage. And then that guy's going to run away. Okay, whatever. It makes you realize like, no, I need to absolutely be as aggressive as I can be, because I need to fill that meter up as many times as possible to get as many perks as I can, unless I get like a couple of lucky early perks. And then you're like, okay, well, you know, I have the ones that will be the game changers for me. But it inspires you to go out there and do work. And that is kind of awesome. Because it definitely, like, once I started playing that way and getting better at blocking and getting better at just like, I'm going to stand in this person's face and I'm going to outguess them. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But it just, I don't know. It makes it into a very aggressive game, and you still have a lot of players playing it that are trying to run away from fights. And you're like, no, fuck that. You realize, oh no, I'm going to chase you down. Oh, you're going to jump off this building to escape me? No, I'm going to jump off this building and try to drop an elbow on you. And I'm going to use my super instead of saving it. And anyway, there's just a lot of stuff in that game that just seems like super smart. And yes, you can use the giant swing to fling people out of the map into the ocean and kill them immediately. And that's incredible. Yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of fucking fun shit in that game. And that is the best thing I can say about it. I will again offer the disclaimer that like I am friends with a handful of people at the studio making this game, and so just take that into consideration. I am not going to sit here and sell you go buy it today. You know, it's free to play, whatever. It's not even out. But I want people to know that. I'm not trying to hide that. So you have to kind of take what I'm saying with something of a grain of salt, because hey, it is what it is. I've had access to that game more than other people have had. But I keep wanting to come back to it. And I think that's the thing I'm mostly curious about is when that game is out and it is just available 24/7, will it feel less special? Because right now it's like they put it up for like 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever. And it's like, oh, I gotta play. And every time I'm not playing it, it's like, oh, I better play it because it's gonna run out. And once it's available, how sticky will it be? How will people? But I don't know. People seem to be into it. I saw people sharing clips, and it's a game that the clips look cool as hell, and is it's a really neat thing. There's a part of me that it's also like I don't make games, and this is probably why, because I also look at it sometimes and go like, originally when I heard the concept of it, I was thinking like way more Attitude era, way more attitude in general, far more attitudinal and more realistic character models. Like in my head, it was way more like wrestling realism based and all that sort of stuff. And then it has a very bubbly, cartoony look to it, with exaggerated skinny guys and exaggerated big old dudes and all that sort of cartoony sort of stuff. And I think that really works well for it, and I think it probably helps it appeal to more than just a wrestling audience, if that makes sense. Yeah, it does not look like Fortnite per se. It is not like the character models of Fortnite would look weird in this game. But I think that the exaggerated crazy style, I think ends up working for it. It makes it feel very fun, very silly, very over the top, and I think that helps kind of just to sell the whole concept. But in my head, it was very much like, I'm going to unlock a move where I give someone a middle finger and then stun them, but it's super not that game. It is much wider appeal than that. And that's why I think like, oh yeah, it's probably a good thing that I don't make games, because I would just go like, yeah, man, fucking do the crotch chop and then do this. And, it's like, yeah, maybe it doesn't need that. This was an even shorter test, such that I couldn't even get a full game in, because by the time I got to it, it was almost over. They ran Exoprimal on Sunday night for 3 hours. And this is the first Exoprimal beta that they are doing. One of the later ones they're doing in August, I think, is going to be a full 24 hours. And yeah, this was a very short test. And this is the dinosaur game. This is Capcom's dinosaur game. If you remember the trailers of the big space bubbles in the sky that are raining dinosaurs, just raptors just raining out of the sky for minutes at a time. It's that game where you are robots versus dinosaurs. And I was not super into it. I don't know, like mechanically it seems fine. You have a variety of robot suits to choose from, and you can actually change them kind of on the fly. You can, like in a Speed Rumbler-esque fashion, you can bust out of your, that's a car in Speed Rumbler, but you can bust out of your robot suit and change into a new robot suit. And that's all class-based stuff. So you can be like the assault-based one with weapons. They only had, I think, 4 in this version. So there were 2 assaults, 1 heavy, and 1 support. And the assaults one was gun focused and one was melee focused. one was a heavy, and then one was a healer that had like and the healer had kind of a lightning gun that would stun the dinosaurs. It did some damage, but it was really like you're kind of stunning the dinosaurs and setting them up for other players to do the big damage, and then also healing, dropping like a healing radius and all that sort of stuff. So they've pitched this as like a, not PvP per se, but they have pitched this as a competitive game. And when you jump into it, it says this is a 5v5 game. And you're going to compete against another team. And you're like, okay, so I've seen the trailer and I've seen all these dinosaurs. And and you're telling me that I'm going to be competing against another team. So is this like one of those Evolve style PvE type deals? And it's not even really that. So you basically, and I guess I should say, I got most of the way through a mission, and then the servers shut down. And instead of letting people finish their games, when the servers shut down, the whole game went offline. So we're like up to the last round of this kind of multi-stage. It is exactly like Gambit. It is like someone at Capcom sat down and said, let's take Gambit and let's take Overwatch and then make a thing. At least on how it ends. But over the course of so you're making your way through the city and there's a line tracing you through it. It's not like a big exploration thing. Your team is getting through to the next objective, and then you are stopping and doing a thing. And in every case along the way for us, and I don't know if this is because it's a beta or we just had bad draws or whatever, but like everyone was like, this is dinosaur culling. Kill some dinosaurs. And so your team runs out and stops, and you shoot a bunch of dinosaurs, and then it says, you did it. Now move on to the next one. And then it tells you the other team is completing objectives slower than you are, or faster than you are, depending on how they're doing. So you're not actually directly competing against that other team. And you see, as you're moving from objective to objective, you actually see silhouettes of where the other team is until you get to the next one. And so they are in a completely different instance from you. They are doing the same thing elsewhere. You know what I mean? And so it was not PvP in the way that it seemed like it was going. There was no direct combat in that stage of the game. And then after four of like, get here, kill the dinosaurs, move on to the next thing. You then there was one where we had to protect a VTOL, like a landing ship. And there were like 3 or 4 different waves of dinosaurs. And we just had to like stop and keep them from getting to the thing. And we shoot the thing. And when that completed, now it's like, hey, we're teleporting you to the final objective. And you teleport away after fighting off a massive wave of dinosaurs. They're like, from a technical perspective, Exoprimal looks pretty impressive because it's like, it's throwing a zillion dinosaurs on screen. And as the assault, I'm like standing back and like launching a grenade into the middle of this cluster of dinosaurs. And then they're just fucking blowing up and flying through the air. And it's just chaos. And you're like, that's at least like cool looking the first handful of times you see it. So after that last mega wave of dinosaurs, you get teleported to another area. And then there's just a big cyber cube. And it's like, hey, if you're standing near the cyber cube, it will move further towards its objective. So stand near the cyber cube. Also, the other team is trying to do the same thing with their own cyber cube. And then it just becomes you escorting a payload, like Overwatch. Except it doesn't feel, I don't think the other team ever comes over and makes the payload move back. It is just they have their own cyber cube, and the cyber cubes have their own hit points. And so it's whoever gets there first wins. Now, this is where the Gambit stuff comes into play. Because you can find items that let you control a dinosaur. And so you can control a T-Rex or a Triceratops or whatever. And when you see a controlled dinosaur, it will have a cyber chain thing around its neck. A big glowing fake chain. And so when you take control of the dinosaur, you warp it to the enemy instance. And then you are trying to stop them from advancing their payload. And so that is where it kind of becomes Gambit a little bit, where you are invading their thing. But it, and then, so basically we were escorting our payload. the other team dropped in some big dinosaurs, and humans were controlling those dinosaurs, and so we fought those, and then the server went offline. So I don't actually know what happens from there, because I didn't get to finish that objective. So I don't know, do the teams actually come together in the same area? Are they both trying to escort the cube to the same location so you can technically see them in the world? I'm not actually sure how that part works, because after fighting off a couple of dinosaurs, like, it's the second it hit 8 o'clock, I think it was 8, yeah, there was 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. The game just immediately froze up and just said, like, server error, and threw us out. So I'm not actually sure how that aspect of the game goes, but yeah, I don't know. It's weird, because you look at the menu when you can change robot suits. It looks like there are a lot of them. It's not like it's just one per class, or it's not like there's just 5 suits and each person has to play one and all of that sort of stuff. It looks like you'll have like 15 or maybe more to choose from. And so perhaps replayability comes from that, and perhaps there are additional modes and all that sort of stuff. But the idea of racing another team through these objectives and trying to get there before they do, even though they're kind of ghosts in another dimension for most of the match, does not seem super exciting to me. People are asking, yeah, someone's asking if it has single player. I think it is mainly a multiplayer focused game. That is my understanding. I don't know what the final product will end up having, but it left me a little cold in terms of just the structure of that, in terms of thinking like, oh, okay, we're going to fight dinosaurs, but also players. Having that aspect be reduced to just like, how fast can you complete these objectives, just seemed very flat to me. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Dirty Rectangle was asking about the tone of the game, if it's kitschy or self-serious. It is. You have an evil AI. You have an evil sounding AI. So basically you are working for some sort of company, and the company is like trying to test your abilities. And so it's the AI coming on like, incoming raptors. Like the AI has a little bit of attitude, where it seems like it is trying to send you stuff that is going to kill you, because it is trying to test combat abilities for something. I forget the overall story, honestly. The other Gambit thing is when the match starts, it starts with your team of 5 and the other team of 5 in separate areas, and you can see each other and you can emote at each other, much like you can at the start of a Gambit match. It's weird. It's a fucking weird game. It seemed like, I don't know, like technically competent. You have a handful of abilities at your disposal, whether that's a weird cannon that you can equip and like a railgun type of thing that works on a cooldown, or whether you have a melee attack on a charge, on some kind of charge, or, you have overdrive meters that fill up and let you bust that open. For the assault suit, it was basically just like every weapon fires at once for 10 seconds. And so you can take out a bunch of dinosaurs and all that sort of stuff. It just feels like a bunch of very basic mechanics layered onto a bunch of weird rules. And yeah, I don't know. It's a strange little thing. I don't think it's going to be free to play. Some people are asking about that. I don't think that'll be the case. I'm mostly saying that because I just don't think Capcom is really big on the free to play stuff, or they have not had a huge track record in that area. And it strikes me very much as a paid game. I mean, we can probably look real quick and see if there's pre-orders being taken anywhere yet. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. Okay, yes, it is a full price game. Yeah, I don't know. That's we'll see. We'll see. I think that a lot of that depends on Exoprimal's success. I think will really depend on how much content and variety it has. And I gotta say, going through that one run and having every mission in that run just be the exact same, stop and shoot the same 3 dinosaurs over and over again, was really underwhelming. Very, very underwhelming. And the best thing I could say about it is that it does look cool when there are raptors raining out of the sky. Like from that like tech demo, impressive looking like RE engine, kind of like, whoa, look at this crazy thing. Like that looked very cool. But the gameplay and all that stuff, I thought it just seemed very, very basic. I don't know. So we'll see how the final product comes out. People keep wanting to compare it to EDF. It's not one of those either, because EDF gives you a huge open area and you're trying to go from place to place and do things. And this is more like when you finish the objective, the AI robot that looks like a Destiny ghost or whatever appears, and literally there is an AR line drawn to your next objective. And so you're just going from point to point. You're not exploring an environment. You're not exploring a city, anything like that. You are just you're running to the next objective, and you are fighting a bunch of dinosaurs, and then it says whether you're doing it fast enough or not, and then it's saying like, all right, go here next, and then you go and do it again. So I don't know. You know, obviously it's a very short test, and I was only able to spend half an hour ish with it, so I want to see more of it. I guess that is what the cool dinosaurs raining out of the sky thing has earned it in my eyes, is like, yeah, I want to see if they do a lot more with it. Because if it has, you know, a ton of modes, and if the final product is not that situation where it's like every single objective is the same back to back, and the additional suits give you fun and interesting ways to play on top of, yo, I launched a grenade at that thing and those dinosaurs blew up, all that sort of stuff. You know, there's something to it, but the gameplay part of it is the part that felt very flat to me. So it'll really depend on what variety it has in terms of enemy design and modes and objectives and that sort of stuff. Like I guess there's some amount of potential there, but from what I played of it, I could very easily see this being something that comes out and you're like, this does not have enough going for it to stand out. All right. That's the games I played this week for the most part. I also played some of the upcoming Capcom Arcade collection, but we can't talk about that quite yet. We'll take a look at that maybe either later this week or early next. We'll see. Yeah, that's all the new stuff I've played anyway. I've still been fiddling around with the Steam Deck. I think tomorrow, meaning Wednesday, I think we'll stream some of the stuff directly out of the Steam Deck. I've got the capture card behaving like it is an 800p screen, and so we're able to capture the Steam Deck at the Steam Deck resolution, which should be an accurate way to look at some of those games. And we'll fiddle around with it. I don't know. Like you know, I think there's enough interest in just the Steam Deck as a general device that people want to see the interface and see some of that sort of stuff. So and see some old video games running on it, which I can certainly do, of course. So we'll take a look at it. Let's take one more break here, and we'll come back and we will get into the news after this. Let's talk about breakfast cereal. You know, the stuff that matters most. I don't know if you know this about me. I am passionate about breakfast cereal. I'm a fan of breakfast cereal. Starting the day, ending the day, 24 hours a day. You might just find me just going like, man, I'm just gonna have a bowl of cereal. I'm fine. You want to go out to dinner? No, I'm just gonna have like 2 bowls of cereal for dinner and whatever. It'll be all right. But you know, a lot of the cereals out there on your store shelves are full of junk or sugar encrusted crystallize, it's like they're just like stacking sugar on top of cinnamon on top of sugar on top of more sugar. And that's not great for you. It's not the best. It's not the best. So if you're trying to eat a little bit better, but you're like me and you're like, yo, breakfast cereal. Or you're like, yo, I'm trying to get some protein and I'm tired of all these grimy protein shakes or whatever, then hey, that's another great reason that Magic Spoon may be for you. Magic Spoon is a breakfast cereal. It comes in a variety of flavors. In fact, they've got a variety pack that you can get your hands on. If you just want, hey, just send me 4 boxes. I just tore through 4 boxes of Magic Spoon. I will tear through 4 more. Believe you me. The 4 flavors in the variety pack. It's cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter. They've got all kinds of other flavors too. They got a birthday cake. They got all kinds of different options out there too. The pack has 0 grams of sugar, 13 or 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs, and only 140 calories per serving. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low carb. So, there's a health aspect to this, but it is still an edible cereal. It's not like you're like have to down guard. It's not like you're just like, here's a bowl of sawdust, have a good time. No, it still tastes like breakfast cereal. It's still what you're looking for on that front too. And that means the world to me, because like, look, hey, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I am a healthy eater across the board. I will eat some trash. So if this was like, here's some healthy breakfast cereal adjacent stuff, but it tastes like garbage, I'd be like, I'm out. But no, Magic Spoon tastes totally fine. It's delicious. It's a breakfast cereal. It's recognizable as such. When you put it in your mouth, it does the things a breakfast cereal can do for you, but without all that extra stuff. And that's nice. You want to get some? You want to check out some Magic Spoon for yourself? All right. Here's how you do it. Go to magicspoon.com/Jeff to grab a variety pack and try it today. Be sure to use the promo code Jeff at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they will give you your money back. No questions asked. Remember, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/Jeff and use the code Jeff to save $5 off. And thanks to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this episode. And we're back. Hello. Let's talk about the news. E3 is back up in that ass for 2023. Yes, you heard it right. The Electronic Entertainment Expo, after taking 2022 off, they are going to bring it back for next year, and they have partnered with ReedPop, which Reed is the exhibitions company that runs PAX and a handful of shows in the UK. They've acquired some various other companies along the way that has given them access to some video game shows overseas. They they run the New York Comic Con as well. Yeah, Reed is deep up in the exhibitions game, and now they are going to be, I guess, co-producing the show with the ESA, and they have some ideas. They have kind of gotten out and given kind of a real basic kind of press release, and there's been a little bit of additional information from a couple of the people that are charged with figuring out what the hell E3 is going to be for 2023. And so they are, this is Video Games Chronicle is looking at some of this press release stuff, and wait, do I have a different? Yeah. Yes. That they are looking to welcome back publishers, developers, journalists, content creators, manufacturers, buyers, and licensors. And that they would look to highlight digital showcases and feature in-person consumer components. And that they are because of course you would say this, right? They're saying, we're going to stick to what always worked and reshape what doesn't. Like, yep. That's okay. Yeah, that's what you would say if you were a year out from doing E3 again, you'd say, like, we're going to stick with the stuff you like about E3. We're keeping that. Everything else, that's got to go. So yeah, I don't know. But that said, I do think that there's some of the information out there is at least like promising to hear. This is maybe not the president of ReedPop, Lance Fensterman, says it's a tremendous honor and privilege for ReedPop to take on the responsibility of bringing E3 back in 2023. With the support and endorsement of the ESA, we're going to build a world-class event to serve the global gaming industry in new and broader ways than we already do at ReedPop through our portfolio of world-leading events and websites. Yes, websites. So they own, what do they own? Like they own GameIndustry.biz, right? That's them. Speaking of which, Christopher Dring, who is billed here as the head of Games B2B, wrote more about E3 over on GamesIndustry.biz, and Christopher has been helping out with. He's been working on what E3 is going to be, which I have to say, sounds like a really interesting opportunity. Because that's a weird problem to fix, right? I think it has been very easy over the last increasingly easy as the years have gone on, for over the last 5, if not 10 years, to say like, man, E3 just feels weird. It feels like in a world where the internet is the internet, in a world where all of this stuff just gets broadcast online. Like, what is the reason for E3's existence anymore? All of the retailers' needs are probably being served in other ways, or many of them certainly are. Like, it's very easy to look at it and go like, I don't know why this show exists anymore. Especially over the last, especially since 2019, that last physical show they did, that show just seemed abysmal. From a like trade show perspective, you know, they let the public in, but it just didn't seem like there was enough for the public to do. The show was not built to wait in lines. I think at the time, the thing you would say is you would look at it and just go like, you know what? Like, if they want to do a show that's open to the public, maybe they should just have Reed come in and do it, because at least Reed runs PAX. And I know there are some people that fucking hate PAX. I like PAX. I've often had a good time at PAX. Granted, it's because I'm usually going there to do fake wrestling, and whatever else happens at the show, like, whatever. PAX is but PAX knows how to put a show on for people that are there to sit and play games. They know how to manage a line. They know how to, like, okay, here's the booth space we need. Here's the, like, it just feels like a show that was built to accommodate a large cluster of people who are there to see the things on the show floor, which E3 was never really built for that. And so when they just said, hey, we're going to let the public in, you're like, okay, cool. What are you going to do to accommodate that? What they did is they took a bunch of games off the show floor to make room for crowds. And so the big, cool Sony area where you were like, oh man, every third-party game that Sony is publishing is going to be on one of the screens over here. Like, that area was basically gone. And you're like, what the fuck? What? So they made the show demonstrably worse in 2019 when they did that sort of stuff. And just, you know, publishers, I think, were feeling it, and they were just like, man, I don't really see why we're doing this anymore. If this is what the show is going to be, bring in some people that know how to put on a show for the public. And that is Reed. Again, I know people have had issues with PAX as a show and all that sort of stuff. And you know, especially, you know, I think some of their willingness to run a show with some COVID stuff happening still and all that sort of thing. I know at PAX East, there was definitely some controversy around that. But I think that this is probably a step in the right direction in terms of figuring out what the hell E3 is going to be. And Christopher Dring has a lot to say on GamesIndustry.biz that I think is very smart in terms of this is kind of the key the key couple of paragraphs here. I'll read to you what he has to say. Well, I mean, even, you know, he's saying basically like what I think all of us in this line of work have said, where it's just like, these are hard and maybe even impossible questions to answer, so you can see why I might be reluctant to get involved. But then I had a few Zoom calls with some of the people deciding what's next for E3. So on and so forth. We spent hours discussing what the show could be, and suddenly I got excited. We were throwing around ideas about how we could get those consumer and business elements to work and all that sort of stuff. I could totally see that being absolutely super fucking exciting to be like part of the like brain trust or whatever, to go like, okay, like this is a tough fucking problem to solve, but how do we actually do it? And being able to finally get removed from, if they can do this, right? Because I feel like a lot of the reluctance for that show to evolve has been the ESA saying, well, these booths are expensive and we want to sell more of them. And so people doing their own side shit, they're dead to us. We don't care if they're across the street. F those guys. And that struggle, whether it was Activision who pulled out for a few years there, obviously EA has not been a part of E3 for a little bit now, because they went and had their own event for those couple of years there. Like, anyway, I'll read this that Christopher Dring wrote, that to me, I read it and go like, yes, this is exactly, you were at least like, you understand the full scope of the problem and hopefully you have the resources to do. Okay. We've discussed ways to embrace everything that takes place during E3 week, whether they're part of the show floor or not. And that includes things like the PC Gamer Show, Devolver Digital's Car Park, and yes, Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest. Because to those watching at home, all of that is E3. To most people, the event isn't two halls in downtown LA, but it's the showcases, the reveals, and the video games. E3 is more than an expo, it's an idea, and one that's bigger than ReedPop and the ESA. There's no use fighting against that. That, to me, is the smartest thing I've heard from anything involving E3 in fucking forever. Like, yes, exactly right. The weird infighting about who is paying the ESA and who is not. For the people at home, for the press covering the show, we just don't give a shit. It's all part of it. It's all part of the here's video game information in June. Boom. Like that is E3 the idea. And bringing that stuff together and finding ways to get all of that stuff to meaningfully coexist, especially when you set it against it having to coexist with like a public show, which will almost certainly be some part of this. That is still a very hard problem to solve. But reading this, I look at it and go like, they are at least starting from a position of understanding the full scope of this issue. The full scope of what E3 is in a wider sense. And that to me just speaks volumes. And hopefully they all get, everyone involved in this gets what they need to do to actually produce something great. And he even says, hey, some of the ideas are too ambitious to pull off in 1 year, but we can certainly give it a try. Like, yep, totally. I mean, who knows what 2023 will even look like? And honestly, who knows if publishers are involved? And he even kind of gives a little bit of lip service to that and saying like, hey, and when my bosses come back from meeting all the big games companies with a presentation that will inevitably get leaked, perhaps we'll hear how everyone was indifferent and it's just not what the industry is looking for. But I hope not. I hope they'll sign up and come back so that together we can make E3 2023 a week to remember. Totally. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, you may come to a point, and a lot of that will depend on the price, right? I think as I understand it, that there are just a lot of companies that are kind of on the bubble there when it comes to how much money it costs to have a big, meaningful on the show floor presence at E3. Like what it costs Sega to have a booth at E3. And them having to sit down and go like, well, like what do we get? If we spend this money on this booth space, what do we actually get for it? We get to reach the people that are at E3, which increasingly was a nebulous concept, right? Like, okay, the press is there. Like, does Sega need to meet with buyers there? Sure, but they could always just get a meeting room, or they could hang out at the hotel across the street and not pay the ESA, and still have those meetings and still show those games behind closed doors. But how do you and then there was, obviously the ESA. That's why they brought the public in. They're like, because they're trying to add value to the show and try to get people to buy booths. So like, oh yeah, no, the public will be here too, so it'll be like a big fun trade show too. And it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. Now that changes the level of game and the polish of the average game demo that we are willing to put out on the show floor, because if the public is going to be here playing this stuff, it has to be less broken. If it's industry people, we can stand someone next to it and they can reset the thing every time it crashes, and everyone playing it will go like, yeah, of course, games crash. That's not done yet, because they know that. Once we let the public in, it becomes a very different story. And so that never made much sense. And so you could look at shows like Gamescom, which have had public days and business days, and that could lead to situations, if you did something like that, it could lead to a situation where you're like, okay, for the public days, we're only putting out these demos, and for the industry days, we're putting out more. Or on the industry days, you're going to come behind closed doors and see the demos anyway. We don't need to put them out per se. And maybe it'll just stay that way. But when I think about those kind of like, they're big publishers. I don't mean to say that Sega is a small publisher. I more mean to say that Sega is not Microsoft or Nintendo. But shit, man, Sony pulled out of E3, Like, if you don't have those, if you can't get all the hardware manufacturers on board to show at your event anymore, when it comes to, having a big press conference and having a big show and all that other stuff, like, then at some point you're not representing the full breadth of that industry anymore. And so they need to find a way to get EA back into the fold in a meaningful way, as well as, of course, Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo. And you need to convince them to all put on their press conference in that time frame. I think a lot of companies have gotten used to having their own lane and being able to spread out throughout the summer and go like, we're going to talk about stuff in September. And so maybe some of that stuff never comes back. Maybe they've gotten so used to that, and maybe they like the numbers they're getting on those streams that they don't necessarily feel the need to do that. But I do feel like, for as much as E3 as a concept has felt very dated and out of step with the rest of the world over the last decade or so, it is the closest thing that this industry has to a show of force. It is the closest thing this industry has to saying, look at all this stuff. Look at how big this business is. Look at how impressive this industry is. The industry, I think, needs a spot on the world stage to beat its chest and say, look at this stuff, man. And Gamescom is not that show, especially this year. More and more publishers just keep pulling out of it. The Tokyo Game Show is not that. E3 was that. And people know the name of E3, all that other stuff. And I think that if they can find a way to make E3 work for publishers of all sizes, then that will be very impressive. But again, the big limiting factor over the last handful of years, especially for the smaller publishers, has been that cost of booth space and all that other stuff. I was never quite privy to what the exact numbers were for how much when I was working at a company that was getting a booth at E3. I never committed the numbers to memory or anything like that, but like every year it was just fucking expensive to get a big booth on the show floor and have internet run to that booth and have a meeting room off the show floor that sometimes, that probably got thrown as a freebie because you're paying so much for the fucking booth. And you need the booth because you want to run a live show from somewhere on the show floor. And so you want to have a stage that people can crowd around and look at. But also, that's not ever what E3 was. But we did a ton of... It was super fun back in the GameSpot days to go to E3 and put on that live show. And I say super fun because I was not on the production team, so I didn't have to like sit in the satellite truck or run a bunch of fucking cables. I mean, I certainly moved a bunch of boxes in and out of the hall over the years. Steel Knight asking, did GameSpot actually make any money out of that? Yeah. It used to be, and I don't know if it's this way anymore, because again, I'm not privy to that stuff. And but back in the old days, you would sell so many ads. So traffic around E3 was massive. It was one of the big tentpole events of the show. And so you would double or triple your traffic to your site over the course of 3 or 4 days. And as such, all the publishers wanted to buy ads for their games at that time. And so, and also big consumer brands, you would get Samsung or whatever coming through and being like, hey, we want all the TVs on your E3 show stage to be Samsung TVs, and we want to put a bunch of ads on the site and blah, 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 blah. And as such, you would make almost your entire years of ad money. You know, it was a big money event for a lot of years. I don't think it's that way anymore. Spike asking, is that why GameSpot was always rushing to put up E3 videos for the ads supporting the clicks? No. We did that because we wanted to be first. We did that because we wanted to be the best. We did that because we viewed going to E3, and this is maybe not the best way to look at it, but it's what we did. There were people on the staff that looked at E3 as like, we are going to war. It is the Super Bowl. It is, we've got to beat IGN on everything. What can we do? And this is where we're our own worst enemies in a lot of ways, because every year it was like, what's the crazy thing we can do at E3 this year? And there would always be this back channel, like, I don't know who it was, fake or I don't know, but there would always be like, I hear IGN's going really big at E3 this year. And you go like, really? Because they sure as fuck didn't last year. Huh. Well, what's some fucking crazy shit we can do to make sure that we are fucking kicking their ass in weird technology and live shows and all this other stuff? And so that would lead to stuff like Ryan McDonald saying like, I got this idea of these backpacks. We're going to live stream from the show floor from these cellular backpacks, and Homer's going to run around and do this and that. And so you would have all of these ridiculous, like, high-tech nonsense, like cutting-edge ridiculous solutions to try to be in more places at the show than you were the year before. And so every year we were ramping it up. And it was like, okay, I need to do my write-ups. I need to see these games all day. I need to write all night. And so there, you'd have like, one year Greg Kasavin and I shared a room, and we just took the desks and moved them so that they were kind of like back to back. So we were kind of staring at each other across laptops, and just had a bottle. We were just kind of passing back and forth and just writing all fucking night. Not all night, but damn near all night. And it was fun. It was, was it a company taking advantage of young writers to put in way more hours and not pay them overtime? Yes, sure. Of course it was. But we did it because we wanted to. And maybe as editorial leaders, we set a bad example for the rest of the team. I'm willing to admit that now. Maybe that was kind of fucked up. But that's just how we treated E3. And it was a lot of fun. In more recent years, the interview stuff has been super fun for me. And so that is, that's on my to-do list for like, what does that look like now? I very much want to try to do, if E3 is coming back, I want to go to E3 and I want to do the stuff that I like to do at E3. I don't know, like that's the A to Z. I don't know what the points are along that line just yet, but I very much, if the industry is going to get a bunch of people together, then my goal is always going to be, I want to interview some people. So we'll see what happens on that front. I don't know. But yeah, I really appreciate what Christopher Dring has to say on gamesindustry.biz about the problem of E3, because it really seems like He understands it. They also have, I guess, brought back Guy Blomberg, who was responsible for PAX content for a while there. Also known as Yug. You may know him as Yug. But yeah, so he's back into the fold to help work on the E3 problem. And so it just seems like there are smart minds working on what the hell E3 could be. And I think that's really cool. Like these feel like people that have seen E3 from the other side and have seen it the way I see it and not the way the ESA has seen it. These feel like people that have been close to the ground at E3 and been like, man, this sucks. Or like this stuff, this needs to be better. And hopefully this team gets the ability to really go for it, because I think that's what E3 needs more than anything else. I think that if you're gonna do it, you gotta fucking do it. And almost to the point where it's like, hey, can we find a way to subsidize booth costs for smaller companies because they need to be here? We need to find a way to make this an all-encompassing event, and maybe that doesn't last forever because obviously the show has to make money. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about the financials of that stuff to know what the actual solutions are to those sorts of things. But point being, I like a lot of what I'm reading from people who are now working on the E3 problem. And I hope that they get every opportunity to properly solve it. That's very exciting. It's very exciting. And we'll see how they do. I mean, they have a little under a year, right? Or they've probably been working on it longer than the announcement. So they've got about a year to figure out how to put on a viable show in Los Angeles, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's weird to feel excited about E3 considering what it's been for so long, but here we are. And we'll see where they get to. Can we fill Kensha Hall with absolute trash? Can we figure that out? Absolute trash and whatever the next Guitar Hero is going to be. Can we find lunatics in Kensha Hall demoing the next big thing in video games? Because that was where Guitar Hero was. People talk about Kensha Hall a lot as being a disaster. Down there at the old LA Convention Center, but that's what I will always remember is like you could go to Kensha Hall and you could see someone selling hot dogs and you could see Guitar Hero. And I think this business needs another Guitar Hero, not actually Guitar Hero probably, but I don't know. We need some weird feel-good party fad. We need a good 5-year, 7-year run for some kind of weird thing that then completely blows up and goes away. And you're like, all right, well, remember when those games got big again? Like, yeah, no, I remember. I played a lot of DDR, and then they made one with guitars. Like, no, you mean Guitar Freaks? No, man, an American one. Weird, and it's awesome. Weird. And now Harmonix works on Fortnite, I guess. Which, for as much as that like sounds like a sad thing, actually, I think when you look at what Epic is doing with buying Bandcamp and buying Harmonix and what they have done with the kind of metaverse aspects of Fortnite, and you look at the kind of trippy music experience stuff that Harmonix has done over the years, I think all of that makes a lot of sense. And hopefully keeps all those people employed, because it didn't, I love Fuser, but it's hard for me to believe that Fuser was going to keep all of those people employed for the foreseeable future. So, hopefully they're working on something cool. Speaking of working on something cool, Respawn is hiring for... Oh man, Eurogamer has this story among others, and on Respawn's career page, they are hiring for a variety of positions. Of course, Respawn, I guess they're the darlings of EA right now. I mean, they have Apex, they have a couple of Star Wars games in development. The Jedi Fallen Order sequel, Jedi Survivor, and some kind of first-person shooter. And they've got, I mean, Apex has done incredibly well for them. And now they're working on something that the job posting is... All right. I love this. Okay, they're calling it Apex Universe FPS Incubation Title. So you telling me you're going to make a first-person shooter set in the Apex universe? The what now? The Apex universe. Do you mean do you mean Titanfall? So this is, if you have followed Respawn since Titanfall came along, you know that they incubate games and prototype a ton of stuff. So Apex Universe first-person shooter incubation title sounds like a very skunkworksy kind of team that is like trying to figure out like what can we do in this space and what can we do to make it cool. And a lot of people are saying like, oh, this means Titanfall is dead. And I'm going to say we don't know enough about it to say one way or the other. This could absolutely end up being a Titanfall sequel. That's not what makes me excited about it, though. As much as I would love to see a Titanfall 3 or whatever come out of this incubation process, I am much more interested in someone sitting down and coming up with a really good mobility-focused first-person shooter set in that universe that is known for incredible mobility-based first-person shooting. Apex Universe doesn't necessarily mean like, we're making a game based on the fucking guy that turns invisible or the guy that throws the decoy out. We're making a game based on, and maybe it could just as easily be that. Could be. I guess my point is, when I think about the stuff I love about Respawn's shooters, it is not necessarily the part where you get in the giant robots. That stuff is awesome and it breaks up the action in exciting and fun ways, but it's the wall running. It is the shooting while wall running. It is the slide, jump, like all of that crazy mobility is really the stuff that sets their games apart. And so the very idea of them setting about to create some kind of team to make something new like this is enough. That's like, okay, yes, a first-person shooter set in the Apex universe. I'm like, yep, okay, yep, cool. I hope they come up with a bunch of crazy ideas. I hope they incubate and prototype on it for over a year and come up with all kinds of fucking crazy shit, and then throw most of it away and pick the craziest shit and say, this is the new level in this first-person shooter that's going to blow people's minds, and put something together coming out of that, because that is how they have kind of done a lot of their best work. As I understand it, it is very much that process of prototyping a lot of different, very quick things and putting it all together. That's how Titanfall 2, that's how that stuff came about when they had to build that campaign. So that team working on a hopefully campaign inclusive first-person shooter set in that universe, like, yep, cool, great, let's go. Like, that's exciting. Is it Titanfall 3? I don't know. Will it have Titans in it at all? I don't know. Does it have to have Titans in it to be exciting? There's a part of me, my heart wants Titanfall 3. But if they had something that had all of the awesome mobility of their other games, Apex Legends and the Titanfalls, specifically, and built on that is still a very exciting prospect. So yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, I can't believe they aren't calling it the Titanfall universe. Of course they're not calling it the Titanfall universe. Do you understand how big Apex Legends is? It's like it's dark in some weird way that it is called the Apex. I don't know. I think it's fucking hilarious that they're not calling it Titanfall Universe FPS incubation title. Whatever it ends up being, it is a brand new Respawn single player adventure, according to the job posting. So yeah, let's see. There's a little bit of additional stuff from that listing. This new single-player title is a developer's dream playground with the freedom to innovate made possible by the unique universe it inhabits. And according to Eurogamer, that comes from an ad looking to recruit a hard surface artist. Our critically acclaimed multi-platform games have always established a fun comes first sensibility, created with the notion that great ideas can come from anyone, which allows creativity to shine and individuals to shape the game in meaningful ways. So, yeah, awesome. And if they're looking to hire people and they're looking to get people on board, it's like, again, I'm sorry to say it, saying make the next game in the Apex universe probably excites a somewhat larger group of people than make the next game in the Titanfall universe. Also, maybe they get to a point where they're like, you know what? We don't want to put Titans in it. We have good storyline reasons. We have good gameplay reasons to not put Titans in it. And so we should not have billed this as the next Titanfall or whatever. But I will accept, again, ideally it has a multiplayer component of some kind. I could, you hope that they don't back away from making a competitive multiplayer shooter simply because Apex Legends exists. Hopefully they have something that's a more traditional team deathmatch style of experience. I would love to see something like that. And hopefully the success of Apex Legends does not scare them away from including that. It would be very weird to put out a single player only shooter in this day and age, but it does happen. So yeah, I don't know. I am excited that that this is, and who knows, maybe this never comes out. Obviously, this is literally calling it an incubation title. It is something that they are like skunk works, going crazy, building weird stuff, and hopefully that weird stuff eventually leads to a kick-ass video game in 2025 or something, and that's pretty awesome. I don't know. And again, I think it's hilarious that it's that they're referring to it the way they are. God of War Ragnarok got a release date. And everyone apologized. Everyone who was shitty online about the release date having to wiggle back and forth over a couple of days due to some behind the scenes stuff. Everyone apologized because the release date finally got announced. I'm sorry, I almost said it is November 9th. They are going to put out God of War 2, the sequel to God of War. It's like a week. It's literally a fucking week. People couldn't fucking wait a fucking week. People became unhinged and super shitty online over a release date that got delayed like a week. Not even the release date didn't get delayed like a week. If anything, the release date moved up. They release date announcement of the release date took a week longer than people thought it would. That's the dumbest shit. It is the dumbest shit ever that people got all up in arms about a release date not getting announced, only to have it get announced very soon after that. What a bunch of actual jack-offs out there online. All right. So November 9th, it'll be coming out. They have put out a video unboxing the various collector's editions. And if I am reading this right, all right, look, hey, games are digital now. We download them from the online. They come out of the sky. We pull them off the bird. They get satellite time and they beam the games out to us. And we play The Legend of Zelda with voices in the background. It's crazy. Comes right off the bird that way. They don't come on discs. I get it. The game has changed, as they say, but this still really rubs me the wrong way. The collector's editions of the game are not coming with a physical disc. And that is wrong. Straight up. Why are you buying it at all? All right, I get it. You want a big hammer. But at that point, okay. If you're selling a collector's edition that doesn't come with a physical copy of the game, and it will come with a code for the full game, that's just some bullshit they sell at GameStop. That's just some licensed garbage that's off to the side. Like, oh, what do we got here? We got Funko Pops. We got a Kratos Funko Pop sitting here. What do we got? We got, I don't know, some anime ladies. And oh, here's a hammer from, what is this? Oh, God of War. Okay. I thought it was a Thor thing. It's just some fucking shit on a shelf at that point if it doesn't come with a physical copy of the game. So they have multiple tiers of collector's editions. The only version of the game from and I had to read the PlayStation blog post like 7 times to go like, wait a minute, am I reading this wrong? Because this seems insane. Okay, the God of War Ragnarok Standard Edition appears to come with a standard game box that will either contain the PS4 or PS5 version of the game. If you so desire. I guess the move was, would be to buy PS4 and then pay the $10 upgrade fee, because then you'd have both for the same price of just buying PS5, I guess. I don't know. I assume the PS5 disc does not grant you access to play the PS4 version of the game, but I do not know. So there is a standard edition that comes with a disc. And that is referred to as Launch Edition because it is coming with some snow armor. Some snow armor. Yes, and you can upgrade from the PS4 version to the PS5 version for $10. Because they want their $70, and they're going to get it, damn it. There's the Digital Deluxe Edition, which says digital right in it. So, of course, that is just you buying a game on the internet. That comes with, let me look over here. That's both versions, PS4 and PS5. It also comes with some armor, the Darkdale attire for Atreus, some blade handles, an axe grip, a soundtrack, a mini art book, an avatar set, and a PlayStation 4 theme. Then we move up to the Collector's Edition, and this appears to come with a box. Wait a minute. Okay. All right. This is perfect. This is perfect. Okay. So, the Collector's Edition comes in a box that represents the Knowledge Keeper's Shrine. The shrine was of the triptychs that Kratos and Atreus came across in God of War 2018, depicting the tale of a powerful seer, the giant sorceress called Groa, who was the first to have a vision of Ragnarok. This comes with a printed voucher code for the full God of War Ragnarok game on PS4 and PS5. So it comes with a code for the game. No disc. Code for the game. A code for the game. I want to underline this. I want to make sure, because the next sentence out of my mouth is going to make you go, fucking what? It comes with a code for the game. The next bullet point, a SteelBook case. No game disc included. They're giving you a SteelBook and not a disc to put inside said SteelBook. I am not precious about game discs. I don't want that shit in my life. I also don't want any of this shit. I don't want fucking, comes with a hammer and some dice and stuff. Like, okay, sure, fine. What the? Why would you include a SteelBook if there's no disc to put inside the SteelBook? It makes zero sense to me. What are you gonna? I'm gonna put my copy of an Oasis album in there, and then I can carry it safely to my car where I can listen to it. Wait, what? No, Woody, what the fuck are you? It says no game disc included. We'll go down the list and see if anything on this list resembles a disc. It comes with 2-inch Vanir Twins carvings, a Dwarven dice set that appears to be a full D&D dice set. Look, that looks like a D20 in the picture amongst other dice, and a 16-inch replica of Mjolnir, Thor's signature weapon from God of War Ragnarok. No soundtrack disc, no disc. We burned some screenshots onto a disc so you could put something in the SteelBook. Am I to go buy the launch edition, physical edition, and then take the game disc out of it and put it into the SteelBook? Will the SteelBook even have a spot to put a disc in? Or do you just open it up and it's empty and it's like there's a clip here to put the code in? What do you... Why? Why would they do that? You could put other stuff in this box. Like, you could put other things in the God of War Ragnarok Collector's Edition that don't include a SteelBook that might be something cool. But a SteelBook for a game with no disc? What are you doing? If you are collecting that, what are you doing? What? Okay. It also comes with some digital items, most of the stuff we mentioned with the digital collector's edition. Now, there is also the... I'm going to pronounce this wrong because it has an umlaut on it. The Jotnar Edition. And now this one comes with even more stuff. But it appears to be the same as the other version, but with one, two, like, okay, the dice are better. The dice are better. Jotnar? Okay. We'll go with Jotnar. Okay. Inside the Knowledge Keeper's Shrine for the Jotnar Edition, you will receive a printed voucher code for the game. Again, no disc. A 7-inch vinyl record with music by Bear McCreary with 2 tracks on it. You get a Hot 7. Yeah, we got a split 7, Bear McCreary and, Spencer Nielsen doing his remix of the God of War music in the style of Echo the Dolphin for Sega CD. God, could you imagine? A split 7-inch Bear McCreary, Spencer Nielsen. Woo! Woo! A 7-inch will not fit in a SteelBook. You will get a pin set featuring a falcon, bear, and wolf. A ring, the legendary Dropnir ring, in a red cloth bag. You will get Brock's dice set, and that comes with a metallic silver finish with blue detailing, and the dice bag features the Holdra Brothers brand. So you get premium dice. You get the Jotnar Edition, you get premium dice. This isn't the bullshit dwarven dice from the collector's edition. This is premium fucking dice. Oh, this is like wrap your hand around your head to smoke cigarettes. Premium dice. Get a cloth bag. Cloth map showing each of the 9 realms. You get, again, the SteelBook display case. And the twins carvings and the replica of the hammer. And some more digital items that appear to be the same. They are going to start taking pre-orders for this in a few days. They did not list prices here. So I don't know if the price information for these are out there. I imagine that the version that comes with fancy dice are going to be... Hey, you don't get premium dice for cheap, man. I like the idea of the game coming with dice. Not that God of War is some RPG or anything like that, but I don't know. That's kind of cool. Like, here's some freaking dice. Here's some D&D dice for that ass. That's kind of cool. But again, you know, and not to get, like, who cares? At the end of the day, who fucking cares? Don't buy collector's editions. But the very idea that they have put out not one, but 2 tiers of collector's editions that come with a SteelBook and no game disc. And again, I am not precious about game discs. I don't, like, in this day and age, they're foolish. Games get patched. The game that's on the disc is interesting for historical purposes or whatever, but, like, we live in the age of people need to have internet to play video games. And that's that. So I am not precious about discs. I'm not like, I'm not outraged that how dare they, except that when you like, what are you collecting? Again, this is all just licensed gear that could have been sold any which way, and bundling it together like this. This is like when there was, I can't remember what it was, but there was some collector's edition that didn't even come with the game at all a few years ago. And it was just like, here's some shit, and you could buy it. And it's intended for you to buy it alongside a copy of the game. Was it? Yeah, Andromeda, right? Was it Mass Effect Andromeda? They were really doing you a favor at that point, though. It's like, here's some cool Mass Effect shit, but you don't need to play the game. Like, Red Dead was also that way. Yeah. And Wolfenstein? Yeah, I think Wolfenstein maybe is the one that... No, I have a Wolfenstein Collector's Edition that's specifically an Xbox. Anyway, yeah, don't call it... I mean, okay, like, you can do this, whatever. Yeah, here's me, the arbiter of what you can and can't do. You can do this. You can sell this shit. Do it. Absolutely. There are players that very much want some cool shit to go with their game, but don't call it a collector's edition if it does not come with a physical copy of the game. I feel like that's especially in these cases where it doesn't even come with any copy of the game. That's crazy. At least these come with codes for the fucking game. But God, just don't call it a collector's edition. Call it like, hey, we've put together a fun merchandise bundle of some fun limited edition stuff. And, you know, hey, it'll come with this and that. And, you know, hey, you want a cool hammer? We got 5,000 of these cool hammers. We'll sell you a cool hammer. You give us $250, we'll give you a cool hammer and some fucking dice. And number them, you know, and make sure that they look like limited editions, and do them up nice. And just say, like, hey, here's the thing. You can buy it. The game, you can get the game for $60-$70, like, whatever. But also, we're selling this. And you know, and then to maybe make that a little bit more attractive, just go like, hey, if you decide to buy the game at the same time, we will knock $10 off, or you know, whatever. To try to make it some kind of cohesive thing. But, like, just sell the stuff at that point. This is not a collector's edition of God of War Ragnarok. Here's a code for the game and a bunch of stuff. You want some dice? You want a SteelBook? They put a SteelBook. I wish that they, you know what? There's a video. I'm sorry. I'm going to go through. You might hear it. That is too loud. I'm sorry. I know this is unprecedented, but okay. He's opening the dice set. I'm just going to mute this. I want to see I want to see that SteelBook. I want to see them open the SteelBook. I want to see what's inside the SteelBook. Okay. At 2 minutes and 10 seconds is the SteelBook.
Yes. Ooh. Gorgeous artwork on the front. Take a look at the back. The SteelBook display case, both in Collector's Edition and the Jotnar Edition. Oh yeah, so that kind of
open it. He's opening it.
We told before.
Oh.
In addition to these physical items, both the Collector's Edition
cracked it
and
open.
the Jotnar Edition.
He cracked it open just enough to let it stand up on the table in like a true QVC-like fashion, but did not open it. So I was not able to see if it has room for a disc in it. I'm scrubbing through the rest of it now. I don't see them opening. I do not see them opening the SteelBook.
The SteelBook display case.
Display case.
Edition and the Jotnar Edition. Oh yeah, so that kind of continues the story.
And SteelBook is trademarked because it's a thing. Did they do some deal with SteelBook like years ago and then realize like, oh shit, we don't want to do that? I don't know. But they have not. I don't know. They have not announced prices for this stuff. I imagine that Jotnar Edition's probably what, $250. Is that the going rate for the high-end collector's editions these days? Here's a SteelBook display case for a package that does not come with a disc. They just kind of gloss over that part. On the screen at the bottom, it just says game disc not included. I could talk for another 45 minutes about how fucking insane this is. But I think you get the point. Anyway, weird move. Weird move on Sony's part. But hey, congratulations to them for finally announcing it. And hey, congratulations to everyone involved in God of War for putting out a game in the year 2022, seemingly, perhaps. We'll see. Maybe it'll get pushed back. But they seem pretty confident in this release date to go ahead and announce it now. So, shipping a big game in 2022, seemingly a rarity. So, good on everyone involved for, well, good luck, everyone. And hopefully you won't have to crunch too much. I know you probably already are. What else is going on? A bunch of little stuff. The Xbox Live Games with Gold program is going to discontinue the inclusion of Xbox 360 games as of October because they've run out of games to give away to people, I guess. Forspoken has been delayed. Speaking of how hard it is to ship games, there will be a new Splatoon-themed OLED Switch coming out in August, and that'll come out ahead of the launch of Splatoon 3. Here's another weird. That's okay. They're putting out a Splatoon 3 edition of the Switch. It is going to cost $10 more than the normal Switch, according to Polygon.com. It will be $360. And it does not come with Splatoon 3. So, yeah. It comes out in August, and Splatoon 3 comes out in September, but it does not come with a code for Splatoon 3. It is just a Splatoon 3 themed Switch. It looks nice. It's got a little paint splotch on it, on the dock. It does not come with a SteelBook or a SquidBook. Sorry. And so, yeah. I don't... that's happening. Just put it out. I mean... Put a code for the game in there and sell it for sell it for 400 even, or 410 if you have to, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe they want to be able to sell, but like maybe they want to be able to sell them to people who don't want Splatoon, but who out there is going like, I don't want Splatoon, but I want that Splatoon 3 Switch. I know that this is not the first time that exact thing has happened. It's dumb. Animal Crossing didn't come with Animal Crossing when they did the Animal Crossing Switch. Just truly maidenless behavior, as they say. As they don't say. There was a week there where people like to say that. Rockstar got out and said, hey, we're shifting a lot of people onto Grand Theft Auto 6, or rather onto the next Grand Theft Auto. This was after a handful of reports about remasters of Grand Theft Auto 4 and Red Dead Redemption being in the works. So these initially started as reports saying that people have been pulled off of those onto the next Grand Theft Auto. Rockstar did come out and say, yeah, we're making that Grand Theft Auto. I don't know if you know, but we're making that Grand Theft Auto. Also, we are not putting as much, we are, they didn't come out and say we are ending support for Red Dead Online, but they did basically say like, hey, we don't have any big content for that thing planned. We will work on bugs and some minor stuff, but it is not something that is going to be a big deal. Yes, also that the ports of Red Dead Redemption 2 to PS5 and Xbox Series X perhaps canceled. There is a class of there is a person, there is a style of person, an archetype of person out there who is extremely unhappy about this news because they are one of the 12 people that still play Red Dead Online. And to you I say, if you are shocked by this news, why? It feels like they have made it pretty clear that Red Dead Online has not been a focus of theirs since it launched. And yeah, that obviously Red Dead Online never took off in the way that GTA Online did. If it did, they would just hire more people and say, oh yeah, we're making a lot of money over here on Red Dead Online. We have to keep supporting that because there is a huge player base demanding it. That huge player base is not there. It's a chicken and egg problem. You could say like, well, if they did more, then maybe. I don't know that I agree. But of course, someone over here who did not like Red Dead and does not like Red Dead, of course I'm saying that. But God damn it, man. I get my cowboy shit a different way. From professional wrestling. I don't need Red Dead in my life. And I certainly don't need Red Dead Online in my life. So I guess, hey, unsurprising that they are not going to continue to support Red Dead Online. That it feels like the writing has been on the wall for that since the month it launched. And you were like, wait, this seems really thin. Maybe they'll put more in. And like, nah, it wasn't that deep to begin with. It never seemed like something that I know they wanted it to be big, but they did not do it. They did not get the job done. They failed on that front. And they are probably right from a business perspective to cut support for it. It doesn't seem like that there's money to be made there. Like who's out there? Like it's that's just not where the money is. A new Grand Theft Auto will probably do significantly better for them than Red Dead ever did. So I can't blame them. Every time it comes up, I think I say the same thing. And that's been true of the last 4 Grand Theft Auto games at this point. That feeling of just like, man, what do they do now? And I don't know what they do now. But also, like, I'm worried about the future of Grand Theft Auto in a different way now. Because in a post-GTA Online world, whatever the next GTA is has to replace that, or at least has to be such a huge leap. Maybe they keep it connected somehow and it's the same GTA Online, but it has to be a huge step forward in enough of a way to make it worth it for them to cut that player base in half and like, oh, we're going to start over, or whatever they end up doing with GTA Online. It has to be something that is either additive to the existing GTA Online or replaces it so wholly, so completely, that they make a ton of money off of that instead, or both, or or whatever it ends up being. But if they end up in a situation where GTA 6 comes out and people are like, that's cool, I still want to play GTA Online on GTA 5 because it's a better, deeper game, whatever, then they have fucked up. That's a very hard problem, I bet. I bet that they are very much like, shit, how do we do this? But maybe they've got the exact idea of just like, yeah, whether it's like integrating a campaign into a more online world or finding different things like that. I don't think that that's not what I'm looking for out of a Grand Theft Auto. The online aspect of that game every time I have gone back to it, and I did reinstall it a few months ago and mess with it a little bit again, I was just like, this isn't, I respect the people that are doing all their weird role-playing stuff. That's not really for me. I want the big crime story, but also also they've done that big crime story now 9 different ways. And doing it in this day and age with the way crime is now would be a parody on top of a parody, or maybe they do a period piece. I think that would probably be the best way to sidestep modern times and how fucking batshit crazy the actual world is right now, of just like, yeah, like, what do you know? Yeah. Do you want a GTA that's just full of a bunch of fucking NFT jokes? Or like where you've got a side story, or like a side mission that is about you stealing a bunch of NFTs and killing a bunch of guys dressed up in monkey suits? Is that the thing you want? Do you want a bunch of NFT, like crypto bros on the street, and you run them all over and it says Goranga? Okay, I'm back on board. That I actually do want. Like, is that the game you, because like, is that the game you want? A parody of actual modern times that are already so ridiculous. I think that they would be better served with some kind of period piece. I don't know where you set it. I don't know when you set it, rather. Yes, no, the real world is a lot more like an old Saints Row game. We have turned real life into Saints Row the Third somehow. But yeah, do they go back to Florida? Do they go back to the 80s? Is that what, do people want that Miami Vice style thing again? Because I feel like that wave crested. That wave came up again, the like retro synthwave, chill wave, whatever, came and went again. If you set a game in the 90s, where do you set it? Is 90s Florida interesting? Because I feel like the period piece of Florida is that Miami Vice thing. Like, where's the cultural center of America in the 90s? It's West Coast hip hop, and they, GTA 5 gives you a lot of that tone, a lot of that style. So, yeah, I don't know. It's again, I think that's a super hard problem to fix, but maybe I'm just lacking in imagination about what to do with it. So yeah, we'll see what they end up coming up with. But I think a modern times, yeah, 2000s NYC, lots of beating up hipsters. I feel like that's the like, let's make fun of people in skinny jeans. I feel like that was so done to death. I don't know, like bringing that back, it feels like too soon in some weird way. I don't know. Tokyo, you could take it out of the US. I think that, and it's sad, but I do think that when you take it out of the US, you probably lose a lot of interest from American players. I think that sucks. But I think that would very much be true. I think that would hold true for London as well. I think you end up kind of losing some of that stuff, or losing some of the crowd when you go too far outside the US. It's just, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what they end up doing. New RoboCop game got announced. Peter Weller is returning to voice RoboCop. And yeah, I don't know. That's about it. It'll be called RoboCop Rogue City. It's from Nacon, who publishes some stuff. And they're claiming it's going to be out in June of next year. They put out a little trailer. Terminator game also in the works. Sure, I'm trying to think if there's been a good RoboCop game other than the original arcade RoboCop from Data East. Peter Weller did return for Mortal Kombat 11 when RoboCop appeared in there, so it's not the first time that he has reprised the role. But yeah. I don't know. I like RoboCop. I feel like a lot of the RoboCop stuff just hasn't translated to games super well outside of the that Data East game and some of the games that kind of followed in those games' footsteps. There was that original Xbox RoboCop first-person shooter. It was totally terrible. I don't know. But hopefully, maybe we're kind of out of that era of bad licensed game a little bit, that, people doing this stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I should look up who's developing that and kind of see what the lineage is there. That's going to do it for the news. Thanks to all the news for getting announced and so on and so forth. I'm trying to see if anything else happened while we've been here recording. Not really. It's July. We're in, we're getting more and more, we're kind of getting out of we would think of as the E3 window. And so, we're going to have some more announcements here and there and all that sort of stuff, but it's still a little slow going. But yeah, stuff's starting to happen again, and that's nice. I don't know, that E3 thing really was the big deal of the week. Brought to you, but I don't know. Let's get into some emails here. Hoping my email client works. It was down yesterday. I went to go flag emails. podcast@guard.bike is your email address. Oh, I just checked. So I created a business email address and put that on my YouTube channel. And we've made it, people. Ring the bell, whatever, I don't know, like if we need to make a mark on a board somewhere. I just got an email to that address yesterday. And the subject line is Sponsored Raid Shadow Legends Promotion. Here's what they want. Show 2 trailers during the sponsored stream, 2 hours of sponsored gameplay after streaming for at least 1 hour with regular content. Oh, so, okay. So you have to do 1 hour of your regular stuff and then transition into your 2 sponsored hours. Show 2 trailers, a Twitch panel below stream with tracking link, download goal overlay on stream. Chatbot command with tracking link, 1 social media post before going live, downloads count as soon as the viewer completes the 2.5 minute in-game tutorial. Guaranteed base pay, $1,950. And if you can get, and that goes up if you get people to download. Great. So we've made it. We've attracted the whatever that is. I was going to say ire. Ire is not the word. But all right. I have deleted the email. Jeff from Connecticut writes in and says, Sony has said they're far from done with studio acquisitions, so who do you think they buy next? Ember Lab, who's the Kena developers, Square Enix, Capcom, Microsoft. Okay, I don't think they're going to buy Microsoft. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's hard to speculate on this stuff. The deal with Haven, the Jade Raymond studio, just closed, and I think they announced that yesterday. Like that was something where they said, "Oh, hey, we are intending to buy them." I guess that sale just closed. But yeah, so who does Sony buy? A lot of people have been saying Square Enix because they seem to be tearing down in terms of like they sold that stuff to Embracer. They sold like the IO stuff went back to IO for Hitman and all that. So would Square Enix be a target there? But I think they're maybe a little bit too big. I don't know. Like their games seem to be doing fine these days. They just seem like they got lean and mean, and that could either be for an acquisition or to just reset and focus on the stuff that's been working for them. So I think it's hard to say. Capcom, Capcom has been that acquisition target that people have talked about for Microsoft for a lot of years, and you definitely heard those stories. We've talked about it before, that Capcom felt like it was very much on the ropes for a while there, and then you had Monster Hunter World come out and do really well, and that has kind of set them right in a way that they may not be, or that their price has potentially gone up to a point where maybe it's not worth it anymore. So I don't know. I think if you look at Sony's leadership and you also look at the kind of stated goals from the PlayStation department in terms of the number of live games they want to have up and running and how they want to broaden their portfolio, I think that they got Bungie, so they already are kind of moving in that direction, but I could see them moving further in that direction with someone else who is doing a live game. Would it make sense for them to buy like a Digital Extremes and get Warframe? I don't know. But I don't think it necessarily has to be a Japanese studio. It could be a lot of different stuff, really. Are there more smaller studios throughout Europe and the UK and stuff for them to pick up? Like, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. These questions are always weird because it's not like, who do they buy next? You have to look at like what are the holes in there? Yeah, Funcom. Do they buy Funcom? Is the price right for Funcom? Yeah, Jalax in the chat says, yeah, I don't know. It's you can speculate about this stuff about who would be a good fit for Sony, or rather, I think maybe the right way to look at some of this stuff is from a platform strategy perspective. And you look at what is on PlayStation, what is selling well on PlayStation, what are the holes that the PlayStation lineup has right now. And think about it that way in terms of like, who would fill a gap for first party PlayStation? I think with Microsoft, it's a different story because like of the way they manage Game Pass, it ends up being weirder because it's like anyone they buy is just more content for that product, right? People saying buy Atlas. I mean, you're buying Sega at that point too. So is that a good fit? I don't know. Also, again, if you think about it from a platform strategy perspective, you would only buy Atlas if you got wind that maybe Atlas was for sale, and Sega for that matter. Because if you think about it, a lot of those Atlas games end up being exclusive to PlayStation by default. Same with a lot of the Square Enix stuff. That stuff doesn't automatically come to Xbox. So you're getting the benefits of that relationship for marketing money or for just like a happenstance. You buying them doesn't get you games that, buying them gets you to a point where like, oh, well, I guess Persona's not coming out on Xbox anymore, or those games will come out and then never again. But yeah, Final Fantasy's, the remake is still not out on Xbox, and that's not from Sony owning them or anything like that. That's, maybe there's some marketing money there, but maybe it's just Japanese studio still kind of just is weirdly ambivalent about Xbox development. You still see that in a lot of weird ways. You're just like, that seems bizarre. But maybe it's self-selection, right? The crowd that is going to buy games from a publisher like Atlas, they know they need to buy a PlayStation and they already bought a PlayStation. So maybe those games don't automatically sell well on Xbox, and that's why it makes sense later down the line to be like, oh, these have run their course, of course we'll put them on Game Pass now. because Microsoft's going to throw a bunch of money at us to put them there. So yeah, we'll do that development work. We'll port them over. They're already on PC. So, and whatever, the work is done, not that the work is done, but like a lot of that work gets done and they can make it happen and just get an extra paycheck out of Microsoft for it along the way. Are those publishers playing Microsoft like a fiddle by doing that? I guess it depends on how much they're paying to get those games over there and get those games on Game Pass. Kel from Oregon writes in and says, it's Oregon Kel over here in Oregon. I'm wondering if that energy drink Balls was actually good or not. I think I'm only aware of it through an old magazine ad featuring Jonathan Fatality Wendell. Was it actually good? Do they still make it? I'm intrigued by the bumps on the bottle. Yeah. Well, I thought Balls was all right in terms of an energy drink. I haven't had one in a very long time. Yes, I had to buy a case of Balls from Think Geek because that was the only place I could find it. And it was okay. I don't remember it being a particularly strong energy drink. I would take a case of Balls right now over this can of Zoa. We are down to the last 2 cans of Zoa. And I'm very happy to be almost done with it because it is not a very good energy drink. And I'm just pushing through this case. I bought this case and it was a mistake.
Enjoy your gaming.
Balls was all right. I also remember when I think about Balls, I also think about Fatality. I was guest co-host on Attack of the Show, the G4 program that, as I understand it, is back now. That is on again now, right? So I guest co-hosted a week of Attack of the Show with Kevin Pereira back in like 05, 04? Somewhere in there. And I had an amazing time doing it. I had a great time co-hosting Attack of the Show. That was super fun. They put me up in a hotel right on the Santa Monica Pier, a tiny little boutique hotel. And I just had to cruise in there and they said, here's what you're doing. And I was like, cool, man. Awesome. It was the easiest shit. But it was super fun. And the team there, was great. I never really got the impression that the impression I always got hanging around G4 back then was that there were a lot of people there who cared a lot about what they were making, and they were in constant struggle. Stop me if you've heard this one before, with the management who didn't understand a goddamn thing about what they were doing. And yeah, Attack of the Show was super fun. All the people there, God, Jeremy Hoffman was there for a while. We worked with Jeremy when we did a week of Cinematech. We wrote a week of episodes of Cinematech as well. And Jeremy, who's now, I think he's still at Epic. Anyway, it was a great crew behind the scenes. Gavin, and it's like a ton of awesome people working there. And you felt like being there, it felt like, man, these are all people that really care about what they're doing. And sometimes that stuff just doesn't come across on the screen. And you really got the impression that it was just like, man, these are people who work for a television network for television executives. And yeah. Hey, turns out working for people who have no fucking idea what you do or why it matters, not a good time. Not a good time at all. So, yeah, anyway, but it was stupid fun to work on, to show up on Attack of the Show for that week. And I had a great time doing it. Anyway, how that ties into Balls is there was some LAN party, QuakeCon, whatever that they had a package from, that Kevin went out and interviewed people at this thing. And they did a parody ad where they had a fake energy drink they had called Sack. And so it was Kevin Pereira going out there with a big sack and saying, like, get a hold of this sack. And Fatality was in that, I believe, not wearing a shirt, because I feel like Fatality for that decade or whatever just did not wear a shirt. And so it was Fatality touching Kevin Pereira's sack. And that's what I remember when I think of balls, because I think that that was their balls parody. But yeah, I ordered a case of balls. It tasted fine. I have those episodes of Attack of the Show somewhere. I imagine they're out there online somewhere too. But you know, like I just showed up and did co-host stuff, and so like they were doing magnet. Like, you know, hey, if you put a magnet up near a TV, you can degauss it and tape a magnet to a drill. You know, it's like weird, silly shit like that. And yeah, I whatever. It was an awesome time. Everyone seemed cool. Kevin seemed like a good dude, as I understand it. On the new G4, he has spent time pushing NFTs, which seems decidedly uncool. But I have not seen much of the new G4. I know Austin Creed is affiliated with that and some of that other stuff. I know they're out there. They're doing that sort of stuff. Marco, okay. Well, Marco, I'll give them to you at some point. Figure something out. I don't want to put them out there publicly myself, but if they end up out there, who knows? I don't know. Because I'm pretty sure I have them ripped off my TiVo, so I have to decrypt them off my TiVo because I have .tivo files on a hard drive along with all these episodes of Kids Against Crime. And that first ECW pay-per-view. Anyway. Garrick writes in from Grand Rapids, Michigan, aka Virtual Balboa from the Discord and from Twitch. Hello, Virtual Balboa. I am always trying to get virtual, and I hope that you are too. This week I had a gut-wrenching video game experience that I'd like to share. At 43, I think I've physically aged out of modern fighting games. For the past week, I've been grinding DNF Duel, and 15 hours later, I'm no better than when I started. Not only are my reflexes much slower than ever before, there are multiple attacks from various characters that I'm unable to visually distinguish as they happen. Fighting games have been a passion of mine since the summer of '92 when I first played Street Fighter II. The realization that my decaying meat prison is deteriorating faster than my love for the genre literally brought tears to my eyes tonight. Is there any room in this world for us Gen X nerds that just want to dragon punch a motherfucker? Yeah, it's, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, this happens, right? I mean, I like DNF Duel. I have not tried to play any real online yet. I think it could be fun to, like, I think that's the kind of fun part of Fightcade, is that there are ways to play some of those older games online that maybe, you know, the muscle memory would help you out there. And honestly, I think playing some of that and kind of getting back into the groove with some of those other games might then help you have a better time in some of these newer games as well. I think DNF Duel, I just haven't spent enough time with it. I think a lot of the characters' attacks come at crazy ranges and come from crazy distances and all this other stuff in a way that you're just like, ooh, you're right. No, okay, yes. Apple Green says Fightcade is not viable for people who barely play fighting games. I agree. What I am saying is we should get everyone on the Discord together and set up a time for us to play old people fighting games. But yeah, I think anime fighters in general have a readability problem's not the word, but they are harder to read. I think especially for people who are super fucking used to older fighting games. I think a lot of the anime fighters there's a lot of crazy shit going on at all times, and the readability of that is sometimes hard to adapt to. So yeah, I would say there are a billion other games out there that you could to go back to and all of that sort of stuff. Ben in Boston. Hello, Ben in Boston. Writes and says, it's been a while now. How are you feeling about that Xbox Series S? I think it seems fine. I have not spent much time with it since it first came out because I have a Series X, and it sounds like a perfectly viable console for a lot of people. It seems like people are getting it and having a good time with it. It's very viable, especially like kind of as that like Game Pass machine. The quantities are a little bit easier to come by. It's probably the console that is selling better in Japan. For a handful of reasons, really. But you are able to find the Series S a lot more regularly than a lot of the other consoles. And so that's been cool. And I haven't really heard a ton of complaints out of people. I feel like as long as you know what you're getting into when you get it, right? You're like, oh, well, this isn't going to be the 4K. Not that the Series X is always the 4K plus ray tracing sort of thing. Obviously, there are still trade-offs on some of those things, but the Series S seems like a very capable device at a very low price, and I think for a lot of people that's going to be a heck of a deal, depending on the sorts of games they want to play and what they value in terms of frame rate and resolution and all that sort of stuff. So again, different players are going to be interested in different stuff there. So yeah, I think it's proven to be a pretty smart move on their part to have that kind of low end model that can still technically play everything, even if it's not going to run it all the way that you wish it did. But yes, backwards compatibility and all. I mean, there's so many indie games. Like it's well timed too, right? When you think about it, as all of these gigantic games get delayed, those are usually the games that are going to take full advantage of a Series X and a PlayStation 5 as well. But there are so many smaller games, indie games. I bet, and I have not. I'm just going to say I bet because I haven't seen it running for myself. But I bet Tunic runs fantastically on a Series S, right? Probably does. People should play Tunic. If you can get if you don't have any other way to play it, a $250 console that can play it, hey, awesome. That's a perfectly viable, you go get Game Pass, you go get a Series S. Like Microsoft feels like it's cornering that end of the market between Game Pass and an inexpensive, available console. So I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty smart thing. It's not the console for me because I'm a power gamer. The power gamer is online. So for me, even the Series X to a certain extent, I'm like, hey, this is a really cool console. I'm going to just play this game on PC because, again, for me, it's as simple as like the TV is there, the PC is here. This is not a 4K monitor, but it does run at 165 hertz. And that's pretty awesome. So I like the personal computer. But then I also like the Steam Deck, which is in some ways the exact opposite of that. The Steam Deck is really cool. So yeah, there's a lot of different room for a lot of different consoles, big and small, and that's probably one of the coolest things about where we're at right now is that if you're a player who needs hardware, if you can find it, obviously with that caveat, there are a lot of different devices at a lot of different price ranges that do a lot of different things, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. Spencer writes in, I've been seeing a little bit more of this as well. And Spencer says, a while back I checked out a racing game on iOS that automated not only acceleration, but turning corners as well. You would only really control the position of your car on straightaways, which is interesting in a sense. How long do you think it will be until we start seeing Call of Duty or something like that automate more aspects of the game, like shooting, aiming, and movement, to widen its appeal by lowering the bar to entry? Love the show. They already do that. Call of Duty will, so there are settings for most of the mobile shooters have a setting that like when you aim down sights, it automatically starts firing, or when you aim down sights and there's an enemy there, it will automatically start firing. It's more than aim assist. It's like it's literally auto shoot, because on a touch screen that sucks. And I think that makes sense in the context of making these games more playable on a touch screen. And obviously with a lot of those games, you can you can tether a controller to your phone and play them the way you think they should be played as a console game or whatever. And it's really weird to have auto shooting in a shooter. Similarly to how it is weird to having auto driving in a driving game, but if that's the game they're making and that's how it always has been, like there's nothing wrong with that. Just do it, Yeah, sure. Like find ways to make the games more playable on a control device, meaning a touch screen, that is just not built for that type of fidelity. And you're going to find more and more ways to get people into those games. So I think for the problems they're trying to solve and for the accessibility like window they are trying to attain, I think that makes sense. I don't find those games, I don't, the driving games in particular, where you don't drive the car, I don't find those very engaging. I don't find those very interesting. Like games that are basically like, they're almost just like drag racing simulators at that point, where it's like, well, you just need to jump off the line well by timing your acceleration and time your shifting properly. And then occasionally steer, like that stuff's not for me. And it's, I don't know, it seems kind of cool, I guess, that they're making it, but it's not really, it's just not really what I'm looking for. Nick C writes in, okay, Bryn is in the chat. I think Bryn has done the most research on this actual topic, so I might defer to her. Nick in Chicago writes in and says, I caught your stream of Mr. Do the other day when I had a realization. Considering the game's musical theme upon collecting the fruit and the full solfeggio of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is played, wouldn't the title character's name be pronounced Mr. Do instead of Mr. Do? I believe that we've had multiple people look into this. I feel like multiple people have had their mind blown by this exact thing and dug into this and said, no, it is not. That there's enough evidence out there that says, nope, it is in fact, it is pronounced Mr. Do, but that, yes, it makes sense that people come to this conclusion based on the way the musical scale is used in the game. But I forget what the actual evidence was, but there is something definitive out there that does say that it is Mr. Do. And I can't remember what that actually is. But yes, welcome to the other side, Nick, where you've had that. It's, okay, that's right. Okay, Bryn is in the chat, and yes, it is the Japanese title. The way it is spelled out is in katakana, I guess. Lets you know what the pronunciation is. But there's like, I don't know, there's a bootleg called Mr. Low that runs in MAME. There's a bunch of, yeah. So yes, that is a good, many people have had this revelation, and we've all been there. We've all had that moment of like, wait a minute, really? But apparently not. As he writes in and says, your coverage of the Nintendo shareholder story made me wonder, what does Nintendo look for when a third party pitches them a game? In the last few years, we've seen games like Cadence of Hyrule, the Rabbids games, and the new Metroid games come out from Nintendo and do startlingly well commercially and critically. I'm sure most, if not all of those Kickstarter games that wear their inspiration like badges of honor get pitched to Nintendo but are seemingly rejected. So what is it about the games that they publish that makes them Nintendo specials? Obviously, nobody knows what Nintendo is truly thinking. I'm going to say I don't think that a lot of the games that are aping Nintendo's style, a lot of the Metroid style games that come along, I actually don't know that many of those are actually pitched directly to Nintendo as like, hey, this could be a new Metroid. Oh, I guess we'll reskin it. I don't know what Nintendo's pitch process looks like these days. In terms of like, how does a third party get that meeting? And how are they able to pitch, hey, we want to make a Zelda-themed rhythm game? Like, who do they go to? Where does that conversation start? I imagine that in the case of a Cadence of Hyrule type situation, that it's got to be that developer starting on the Nintendo of America side. Unless they have a contact in Japan. But, you know, like starting on like, hey, this is something we really want to do. Can you get us in front of, can you get us that meeting? Can we get that meeting? How do we get that meeting? And maybe they get the meeting in the US and then someone becomes a champion for it internally and then takes it back to Japan and go, yo, we should do this. And it happens from there. Or yeah, maybe there are there some situations where Nintendo reaches out to make it happen? That probably happens in the collaborative, you know, where you had like Namco doing an F-Zero and stuff like that. Like obviously they're going to be like, everyone knows everybody and that sort of stuff happens. I remember hearing stories that like when Capcom would take pitches at GDC, and so potentially, you know, this is when they were doing more US development at the time, that a lot of those pitch meetings were just people showing up and saying like, I want to make the next Resident Evil. And just like, nah, that's not going to happen. Like, we're not looking for people to do that. You know, so it could be a situation where Nintendo has just certain things around the edges, you know, maybe it's a dead franchise, but like maybe they're like someone shows up and says, hey, I've got an idea and I think it could be the next urban champion. Hey, I've got an idea of how to reboot Clue Land and it's going to make us all $1 million. And in the case of Ubisoft, that's something where, you know, obviously a major publisher like Ubisoft and Nintendo, they're going to have regular meetings in the third party department and, you know, conversations happen and probably, I don't know. I don't know if they've said much about how that pitch happened because it's not like Ubisoft was known for making XCOM style games either. It's not like Nintendo reached out to Firaxis and said, you know, make us a Mario game. But yeah, I imagine that every story is somewhat different, especially with Nintendo, who maybe doesn't necessarily have a process in place already to receive those pitches. Maybe they actually do. I don't know off the top of my head. I could probably find that out. I might be able to find that out. William Chang writes in and says, Ricky Henderson, just wondering if you had any thoughts on the man. I'm a Ricky Henderson fan. I was not an A's fan when Ricky Henderson was playing. But even as a Giants fan through that era, I was still like, man, Ricky Henderson, that guy is fucking awesome. That guy stole a lot of bases. You will not hear any negative Ricky Henderson talk here. Yes, oh yes, the David Cross Ricky Henderson bit is also pretty funny. If you like to hear a man say Ricky Henderson over and over again, I highly recommend it. Let's see. Let's take a couple more here. JP from Maryland says, what are the chances that we see PC ports for Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4 in the near future? I no longer have a working PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3, but would still like to play some old Metal Gear. In the near future, no. But I think this does happen. I think that this again, on a long enough timeline, Konami definitely re-releases those Metal Gear games in some way, shape, or form. 1 and 2 have appeared on the PC before, but I would think that even MGS4 still probably finds its way off of that platform and onto something else someday, because I think that would make money. I think that a remaster, I think that eventually Konami gets to a point where they're like, okay, we found someone to do the port work, and we have found the right way to get those games back out there, and we are going to put them back out and sell them as a collection. I think that yes, on a long enough timeline, Konami wants money enough to where that will eventually make sense, or will eventually present itself to Konami in a way that is easy for them to justify making it happen in one way or another. And I don't think it's this year. I don't think it's next year. But I think that stuff just eventually makes sense. It makes sense now, right? Probably on some level. Though, obviously, remastering or retooling MGS4 to run on anything but the PlayStation 3 will take work. It will take work for sure. But eventually, someone will come along and be willing to make that happen, and Konami will make it happen. I think that just seems like a no-brainer sort of thing. That yes, it's a difficult problem to solve because of the nature of MGS4, but I don't think that will stop them. I think you could always see a situation where they just find ways to reissue 1 through 3, getting around whatever issues or keeping that stuff from happening and putting them back out there. But like, I do think 4 will have to happen eventually. I've been thinking that for some reason buying a Steam Deck made me think about Phantom Pain again. And I was like, man, what if I played that game again and played it on the Steam Deck? That would be pretty cool. So I downloaded it, but I have not actually run it. My understanding is that it does run quite well, but yeah. Let's see. Landon from Minneapolis writes in and says, this build up to the new Saints Row has had me recently thinking about all the Grand Theft Auto clones that were announced and teased during the transition from the PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 3. What immediately came to mind was 8 Days, This Is Vegas, and of course, Snoop Dogg's Fear and Respect. Did you ever get your hands on any of these almost always overly ambitious clones that never made their way out to the public? Thanks, and keep up the great work. Yeah, I played This Is Vegas. I believe it was Midway's final event. The final event they had before Midway went out of business. They had This Is Vegas there running. And there wasn't much to it, if I remember correctly. That was the same event where I want to say they were showing TNA Impact and a handful of other games that were obviously like the late Midway slate before the company just kind of vanished and sold everything to Warner and all that sort of stuff. But This Is Vegas, I'm trying to remember what I even did in it. I did get my hands on it at that event, and I don't remember any part of it. I remember there being a dance floor and some kind of dancing mini game or something. But I don't remember there being much else to it. And to hear the stories from some folks who were there, it sounded like that there were different builds of that game that ran on different. When you wanted to demo that game to management, you brought 3 Xboxes, and each one was running a different build of the game. It's like, here's your dancing mini game, here's your driving, here's whatever. And so it just sounds like it was always a weird mess and something that was never going to happen. And it sure enough didn't. Fear and Respect, I never saw outside of the stuff that's out there. The Game Informer cover and did they show that? Was there some footage of that on some G4 DVD? Anyway, there was like some trailer, the Spike Game Awards. That's what it was. where there was just a tiny little smidgen of that, but I never saw that in person. I feel like that game just came and got killed so fast that they didn't have time to show it to anybody. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, obviously a lot of those games were out there. Yeah, Master P was trying. Master P, I heard Master P on the radio. Was this 5 years ago now? It was still like more recent than it should have been, where Master P was talking up the video game that he was working on still. And I feel like that was something we were talking about in 2008. Like, oh, Master P says he's going to make a video game. And then here he was in, 2015 or something, still talking about his Grand Theft Auto style game. Just seemed super terrible. It sounded like a pitch from someone who didn't know, who still, after all these years of potentially working on it, still did not understand what games were or how they were made. In terms of just like, yeah, no, it's going to be like this, and you're going to do this. And you're like, what? Okay. All right. That's cool. But, all right. All right. Sure. Let's see here. That might do it for us. I've got a quick crime story. Here from Mac from Atlanta, who says, I sold probably 150 brand new Xbox games from 2008 to 2009 on eBay using Microsoft's Retail Expert Zone, a website used for training retail employees on Microsoft products, including video games, and rewards them with discounted merchandise. For each game, you had to get a certain number of points from doing quizzes and then pay $10 plus shipping and handling. I would list all the good stuff on eBay and wait. Once the buyer gave me their shipping address, man, this is elaborate. I would sign them up as a Best Buy location at a Best Buy location near their house and do the easiest quizzes at the time and drop ship them to the buyer. The billing information on the card had to be the same, so I would go to the Wachovia and buy 15 gift cards at a time and make sure the billing information was the buyer's for at least 24 hours so the back end could update and the charge would go through. I even won an Xbox 360 and had to ask my friend's friend, who actually worked at a Best Buy, for a copy of his pay stub. He was sketchy about it, obviously, and blanked out his name and info first. I then used Paint to find the letters I needed in the pay stub and placed my own name and address. I also won Guitar Hero 3 with a guitar, but that wasn't as locked down. I ended up paying for my car about $3,500 before I got the attached email and duplicate cease and desist from Microsoft's outside attorneys sent to me via FedEx overnight. I gave up the scheme completely and told them they wouldn't have to worry about me ever again. I felt lucky to make it out with zero repercussions as a high school kid. And then he has attached, well, he did not attach the actual PDF, but he did attach the email that he got. Notice of misconduct, Expert Zone, eBay. This firm represents Microsoft Corporation. Please direct your attention to the attached correspondence related to your activities on eBay through seller ID, blah, blah, blah. Microsoft anticipates your immediate compliance in this matter. Yep. Well, congratulations for running your fraud schemes for up to $3,500, I guess. And you got what was coming to you. So, I don't know. At least they chased you out of it before you went and did something. It's the thing with that stuff. You know, once you start airbrushing different addresses onto someone's pay stub, that feels like a hop, skip, and a jump away from you ending up in jail somehow. So, I guess it's a good thing that you learned your lesson early, got out the fraud game before it got too bad. Yeah, that's a good weird one. That's a good weird one. Atlanta. All right. That's going to do it for us here. Again, send your emails in at to podcast@guard.bike, and we will chop it up. You and I will read your emails. I will answer some of them here on this show, and all that sort of stuff. Of course, check out the Patreon over at patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. I recently posted a notice about, hey, here's the stuff you can expect this week. Short version is we'll be streaming tomorrow, and I'm going to stream some Steam Deck stuff tomorrow for people who want to see that. It seemed like there was some interest there, so I'm going to be doing that. I know there's a bunch of videos of Steam Deck stuff out there already, but hey, we're going to check out maybe a little bit of emulator stuff running and some games and the interface and all that for people who want to take a look. So come back tomorrow morning, being Wednesday morning, to check that stuff out. Of course, all that stuff gets archived over to YouTube. And check out the Patreon. That's patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. And you can read that. Anybody can read that. You don't have to sign up to read the schedule, all that sort of stuff. But if you sign up, you get an ad-free version of this show, and you get access to this Discord. And there's another note in that notice about some additional podcast stuff coming in the near future. First episode of that will probably be free for everybody, and then that'll be a Patreon exclusive. So check that stuff out for sure. Go ahead and, I don't know, go review this podcast somewhere. I don't know. I should go look and see. Are people reviewing the podcast? I have no idea. I have not looked. Been doing other stuff. Anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out today, whether you're live or whether you're downloading it and listening to it later. That's huge. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with this disaster. All these people out here on Twitch, you filthy animals. The WCW's filthy animals out here subscribing, hype training it up, doing all that sort of stuff. Everybody over here on the Discord enjoying their gaming. Thank you. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Jeff Gerstmann Show. It's a podcast about video games. And of course, additional streams coming. Check those out too. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Enjoy your gaming. Enjoy your game. Enjoy your gaming. Enjoy your game.
Owned by the master.